welcome to IATEFL live show. We are at the conference with
Nikki
And Anka.
and Sean, who is behind the
is
scenes.
hiding. And of course
With Georgia. Hello,
Aw.
everybody. So, how was day one, by the way?
it was amazing. There was so much happening. It was
Yes.
an absolutely incredible day. Anka, what was the best thing for you?
It was so busy. I just so many people to catch up with, so many people also just walking around the hallways. You see so many people meeting, hugging, haven't spoken to for a year
That's
or
lovely, isn't
catching up. It's just
We were just standing here waiting for the live show, and we heard people laughing at the back, and we were all like, "Oh, people are having fun, aren't they?" And this
they
is what
are.
IATEFL is all about. By the way, have you watched yesterday's plenary?
oh my gosh, yes.
Absolutely.
We were checking in the restaurant. Nikki and I went for dinner. We were checking in the restaurant at 8 when it came online.
Yeah, exactly.
It was that good.
I
People-
must say,
People were queuing up outside during the talk. I mean, it was that good.
yes. First of all, it was packed, and secondly, after the plenary, everybody was talking about how good the plenary was, and it was about AI. And Vicky Samuel did a brilliant job with presenting different angles of the topic. So yesterday, I went back to my room at around 11:30 at night, and what I did was to put the plenary. It was simply the best. So for the people watching us from home, where can people watch the plenary?
Well, on the IATEFL live page. But this is the page, not the Facebook group. That's, I think, something to remember when you're going on Facebook. So the IATEFL page. And it's there, and it will be there. Every plenary from every day will be on the IATEFL page from 8 p.m. UK time onwards.
Exactly. So you should not miss a plenary, because this year's plenaries touch upon so many themes and topics. They are incredible.
Oh,
Absolutely
yeah.
incredible.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
Lovely. So you've been going around the conference center. What
We
have you
have.
noticed so far? What have people learned so far?
Everywhere I go, but even like at the hotel this morning during breakfast, I heard people talk AI. It comes up everywhere. Whatever topic you talk about, every other team in English and English language teaching, somehow the sentence, the talk always includes AI. I do really feel that is this year's big theme.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been AI and also well-being and mindfulness as well seem to be the things that people are talking about.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And can I just say that I absolutely like the fact that some people go back to basics as well. So we do hear about teaching practices, we do hear about teaching approaches, and it's very interesting because people want to start from scratch as well. And can I just add a very nice comment that I've heard from a delegate today? A lady approached me saying, I don't want to show off or blow our own trumpets, but she said that with the live shows, she's been able to get very good advice. And number one advice that we gave before the conference was wear sensible shoes, drink lots of water, and say hi to people. So she saw me this morning and she said to me, Georgia, can I say thank you to you because and your team, because I kept saying hi to people who I've met in sessions, people that I've met in different events that are going on, and she has expanded her network so much. It's incredible.
Yeah, but I think we tend to forget that, and it's hard to see if you're not here. But it's not like any other conference, is it? I mean, one of my friends is coming as a first timer, and even she said it. It's like she said, "I've been to conferences, but this is different. It's bigger, but it's definitely a networking thing. It's definitely a meeting, catching up. It's just not something you can miss, really, or want to miss."
Exactly. No, everyone's super friendly. And as soon as people will say hi to you as well. It's not that
Oh,
you're
yeah.
going to be the only one walking around saying hi. So no, it's definitely the way forward and the way to make friends. Yeah.
Can you also say that behind us we have got the exhibition center, and it is, thank you, Nikki, and it is absolutely incredible. There are so many things going on, and I think that happened yesterday as well. At some point we heard people saying there's so many things to do, I really need to run to a session, but I want to stay in the exhibition. So there's always something going
Oh
on.
yeah, but
Yeah, exactly. It's very lively. A lot of my colleagues were absolutely delighted by the fact that people are giving things away, and you can try and win competitions and spin wheels, much like ours that we'll be doing later.
I mean, our spinning wheel is mostly for reflective purposes. So, shall we ask a question actually to the people watching us from home?
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
okay,
a good one.
Okay.
Anka, do you want to?
Oh,
like,
yes.
Really
Can
spin
I have the
wheel?
honor?
Go
Okay.
for it.
Okay. Okay. You hold it. I'll spin it hard.
Yeah, go for it.
And what makes a bad lesson? That's just my luck to
Start with
come
the
up with like the
positive
one
one.
negative question on the board. What makes for a bad lesson?
Anka, what makes for you a bad lesson?
Well, starting with something negative, I'd say is definitely bad lesson.
All right. Nikki, what about you?
Oh, what makes bad lesson? I think if you've planned, I don't know, to use technology, for example, in your lesson, and it goes awry, as it can sometimes do, and then plan B and C then fails as well, and you're left thinking, oh no, what now?
What do I do without internet?
Yeah,
and
exactly.
like,
Then,
how
yeah,
do we exist?
that
Yeah.
doesn't help. What about you?
I think that the bad lesson is when you're stuck on the page and you're thinking, no, I need to follow my lesson plan, and you're not listening to your students' needs. That's probably what makes a bad lesson. The fact that we are stuck on the lesson plan and no, we have to do it, we have to complete the lesson. No, just listen to your students. That would be my advice. What about you? What makes a bad lesson? So before we continue, what do we have on for the show today, by the way?
So many things. We start with, well, in fact, we've got, hang on, we've got the lovely Julie who's sitting over there, who you'll see very, very shortly. Who else we got? We've got a lot
We've got a couple of scholars.
scholarship
We've got
winners.
some
Yes.
interviews on inclusivity and diversity.
Absolutely.
I think we're also talking about educational videos. And there's
Absolutely.
definitely other fun things, so stay tuned.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. Okay, lovely. And we are.
I'm joined by our first guest this afternoon. This is Julie Moore. Hello, Julie.
Hello, nice to be here.
Oh, thank you very much for joining us. Julie, tell us, I've met you a couple of times. I know who you are and what you do. For anyone watching who hasn't seen you yet, what do you do? What's your role in ELT?
Well, I've done many roles, but the hat that I'm wearing this conference is I'm a lexicographer. So I work on learners' dictionaries. And particularly at the moment, I've been involved with the Hornby Trust and a project related to dictionaries that they're running.
Okay, so the Hornby Trust, this is a name that I hear a lot at IATEFL.
Yep.
Can you tell us what it is? How did that all start? What is it? And then how you're involved with that?
Yes. Well, the Hornby Trust is an educational trust that's focused on English language teaching generally. And lots of people might have heard of the Hornby Scholars. So they offer scholarships to teachers from around the world, but they actually have quite a lot of different activities. They were set up by somebody called A.S. Hornby, and he was actually a lexicographer. And he wrote what's generally seen to be the very first ever dictionary aimed specifically at learners. He was teaching in Japan back in the 1930s, and in the 1940s, he realized that the dictionaries he had weren't suitable for learners. They were written for native speakers. So he put together what was the very first learners dictionary, which he then brought back to the UK, and Oxford University Press then published it, and it became the Oxford Advanced Learners Dictionary. And the Hornby Trust is funded partly from royalties from that project. So very
That's
much,
incredible. So
very much my area.
Yeah, and so this is over 100 years ago.
Yep.
That Mr. Hornby went abroad and then came back. So what are the differences between a dictionary that a native speaker might use and a learner dictionary?
Well, native speaker dictionaries, they're written in a very particular style, which is often not that simple. Because it's making the assumption that the person reading it already understands English, and that it's the difficult word they're looking up that they want to understand. So they're written in quite a formal, traditional kind of style, which for a native speaker is fine. But for learners of the language, they often find that the dictionary definitions contain words that they don't understand, so it doesn't
It's not
really help
helping
them.
Yeah.
So a learner's dictionary essentially is starting from who is the target user, and then it's written in a style that will be clear and simple, and it also provides information for them about usage and grammar and all the things that a learner needs to know that a native speaker doesn't.
Okay. And so, yeah, now we have some very lovely learner dictionaries out there.
Mm.
But you gave a
Mhm.
talk, was it yesterday?
Yes,
You
yesterday
gave a
afternoon.
talk yesterday
Mhm.
about the research that you've been doing, and that deals with dictionaries as well.
Yes.
Can you tell us what you did?
Yes, so it's a project that the Hornby Trust has been running for 5 years now, called ASTRA, which is A.S. Hornby Dictionary Research Awards. And I'm a member of a panel attached to Hornby Trust. And every year we ask for proposals for research from around the whole world that is in some way related to dictionaries and English language teaching. And we've been running for 5 years now. And we've so far funded 11 different projects that are spread right across the world. And we're particularly interested, as is the Hornby Trust generally, in targeting low resource contexts. So places where people might not generally get funding for academic research. So those are the kinds of projects that we target.
And this is what you were presenting yesterday.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. And is there anything that's been a highlight for you during your research and helping people in different contexts? Is there something that you can tell us?
Yeah, I mean, there are so many projects and they're all fascinating. And my talk yesterday, I crammed in as many as I could. But I mean, there's probably a couple that I would pick out that are quite different projects. So one of the very first projects we had was in Borneo. So in an underdeveloped rural area of Indonesia and Borneo, where learners, they speak their mother tongue is a local language, a very localized language. Then they speak a regional language. Then they learn the national language, which is Bahasa Indonesia. And then on top of that, they're learning English. But up until very recently, they were having to learn English, their L4, via the national language, their L3. But there's a move in lots of places around the world now to encourage the use of students' mother tongues in the English language classroom, which is great. But of course, there were no dictionaries from this very small local language into English, for them, no resources to use. So our researcher, Agus Riyadi, who was a lecturer at a university in Indonesia, he put together not a full dictionary, but a sample of dictionary entries using the learner's local language into English. And he trialed that with students in classrooms, and they absolutely loved it.
I'm not surprised. I mean, that was just facilitated so many things. But something I'm thinking, if it's a very small language, is the vocabulary similar to things that we have in contemporary day, kind of English speaking world?
Well, that was another interesting aspect of his project, actually. He wanted to bring the language to be relevant to them. So what he did was he took photographs of the linguistic landscape around the school. So photographs of signs outside coffee shops or stalls, and he used that language as the basis for his entries. So not only were the students getting to speak their mother tongue, but they were talking about things that they saw every day, which they found really exciting and really motivating.
And that's a real life task, isn't it? That's what they need in order to communicate.
Exactly.
So,
And I mean, and that typifies, I think, a lot of the projects that we're seeing. They're people who are looking at their specific teaching context and seeing, well, what is it that these students particularly need? And whether that's translations into a local language, or, for example, we've had projects that focus on medical students or science students, very specific contexts, and what do they need, and how can we develop resources for those contexts?
Yeah, absolutely. So you've mentioned 11 research projects.
Yes.
Are there more in the pipeline?
Yes, we're actually, our proposal, call for proposals for this year is open now.
Oh,
Yes.
so if there's anyone that's interested, is it open to the public or how is it?
It's open to anybody who's interested in doing research
Okay.
that is involved in an ELT context and somehow involves dictionaries.
Okay. Okay.
They need to be attached to some kind of educational institution because the funding goes via the institution. But beyond that, it's open to absolutely anybody. This year, they've only got another month.
Right.
So the 15th of May is our deadline
Okay.
for this year. So if they already have a quite a developed idea, they've still got time to put a proposal together.
Okay.
But then we will open the call for proposals again next year in February. So people have time, a bit more time to think. Yeah.
And where could people find information about this?
So the Hornby Trust website. If you just look up Hornby Trust, you'll find it. And you'll see the whole range of projects that they do there. But the Dictionary Research Awards are just one of the things that they do to promote innovation and English language teaching around the world. And as I say, outside of the kind of traditional contexts as well.
Absolutely. So there's still a month left if anyone's got a project up their sleeve. But then that means in a month's time, you're going to have however many new proposals that you can look through and decide which ones you're going to choose.
Yes, absolutely. It's so exciting. There's a group of us on the panel and we will have a look through all the different proposals and decide which ones are something that's new, that's innovative, that's going to be actually practical use in the classroom and that has enough of a research base. We're not just about developing materials, it has to be research based. And it doesn't have to be about producing new materials. We've also had projects which have investigated dictionary usage. So we had one fabulous project actually based in the UK, but a Chinese PhD student who looked at a very popular Chinese dictionary platform and investigated how learners used it. And came up with some rather disturbing results, unfortunately.
Could you give us an example, or is
Yes.
that top secret?
No, not at all. It's what I was talking about yesterday. So firstly, I mean, the platform was a little bit full of errors,
Okay.
but mostly what she found was what we know that students do with dictionaries. They look up the very first piece of information, and even if it doesn't really fit, they go with it. So they would take the first translation they saw and try and fit it to the context, even when it didn't really seem to fit in. So lots of ideas about how we need to do better dictionary training, both for learners and for teachers as well. So yeah, lots of lessons learned.
Okay, well, that's very sound advice. Julie, after your talk, have you had a chance to relax and see anything?
Yes, I've had a lovely time.
Have
Yes.
you? Is there anything memorable? What are you taking away so far?
What am I taking away so far? Well, yesterday actually I had dinner with the rest of the Hornby scholars,
Oh.
who are a really inspiring bunch, and I think you're going to be talking to
we're
some of
gonna-
them
We're going to be
later.
meeting them slightly later this afternoon, yes?
Yeah, so lots of different people from all around the world who are doing all sorts of exciting things. And mostly I've just enjoyed being by the seaside. It's such a fabulous venue, isn't it?
It is
In the wind and the rain and the sun and everything else.
Had it all.
It's a great place. And just catching up with so many lovely people.
Which is what IATEFL is all about.
Exactly.
Oh.
Yeah. I think this is my 21st conference and I never get bored.
Julie, you don't look old enough.
Thank you.
Oh, Julie, it's been lovely talking to you. Thank you so much.
No, it's a pleasure.
And just, amazing work. Keep going.
Lovely.
Thank
you very
you.
much.
Ready to revolutionize your ELT courses? Introducing ITN Education's captivating videos, the key to transforming English language learning. With our expertly crafted content, we'll accelerate language acquisition like never before. Whether in class or online, our custom-built videos support your learning objectives. Discover ITN Education at IATEFL and elevate your ELT courses today. ITN Education, where learning comes to life.
Anna Gerasimova, and I'm from Ukraine. This is the first time when I am on IATEFL conference in live. So I'm looking forward to new people and new ideas for teaching. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Basma Munjid. I'm from Morocco. I am sponsored by Bridges for Culture and Communication, and I'm here because I want to get out of my comfort zone as a teacher and to learn more and more about teaching.
Yeah. Hello everyone, this is Isa Hamdi Ahmed from Egypt. I'm here at IATEFL 2024 Brighton. I'm here to attend these sessions of the conference, and I'm looking forward to attending later sessions and informative, which could give me more information about how to use AI in teaching English and learning English as a second language.
I'm Abigail, and I'm from Cameroon. I'm very happy to be here. This is the second time, and what I really look forward to is finding all my friends I met in Harrogate.
I am Irina, and I'm a member of Ukrainian group, and I'm here also for the first time, and I'm looking for new methods, new ideas, new interesting colleagues, and maybe in future new cooperation with the teacher from another countries.
Yeah.
Hi, this is Sayeda Farzana Sultana. I am from Bangladesh, from RAC University, Department of English and Humanities. I also represent TESOL Society of Bangladesh, and me and some others are sponsored by the British Council to attend this conference. I'm here, first of all, to learn from others, from my colleagues, about the best practices and what is happening in the field of ELT. And also, I have a presentation. This is my first time ever, and I wanted to come to the IATEFL conference for a long time. So this is a great opportunity for me, and of course, for networking. I have met many people online on various occasions because I'm a member of IATEFL. So this is my opportunity to see them face to face, and I'm looking forward to it.
I'm Phil Bird. I'm from the BBC in London. And I am looking forward to, in the plenary, finding out the opportunities alongside AI. What can we do that isn't AI? That's what I'm interested in.
And welcome back to the studio. I'm very excited because I have got with me Matt Elmans and Rachel Jeffries from the Cambridge University Press. So hello and welcome to our studio.
Hello. Thanks for having us.
So first things first, IATEFL 2024. And what have you seen so far for the people watching us from home? Before I ask you questions about you, your sessions and everything else. So what have you seen so far? What are your first impressions?
So you've just arrived, Rachel.
I've just arrived. I'm here, fresh face. So I'm ready. I'm ready to go. So this question's for you, Matt.
Okay. So I came on Monday for the PCE day. So I joined the TT Ed SIG, Teacher Training and Education SIG, for their day on Monday. And that was great. That was fantastic. We had a whole day kind of around the theme of teacher trainer identity. And a real good mix of sessions. So yeah, really enjoyed that. And then yesterday I had two talks. I had one in the morning about how to become a teacher trainer, even before the opening plenary. So I kicked off the whole conference, and that was good. Yeah, we had a good turnout for that. And then we had the opening plenary on AI from Vicky Salmel, which was really good, really interesting. I really loved how she focused so much on the environmental impacts of AI, because I feel like that's something that's not mentioned very often. So yeah, that was a really good start. And then I had another talk in the afternoon, kind of on a similar theme of sustainability and teacher education. So yeah, it's been busy so far.
Busy day, yeah, very busy day.
And Rachel, you've just arrived at the conference.
I have, yeah.
What is one thing that you're looking forward to?
There's a few things, actually. I mean, Matt's already mentioned the AI factor. I don't think I can not mention that. I mean, whenever we're out talking to teachers in training sessions, it comes up, even in sessions where, it's not on the program to talk about AI, but it always comes up. So I know there's a debate tomorrow. So I'm looking forward to that, because I think debates AI. I think that goes together quite well.
And great panelists, right? Because it's Laura Patsko and
Yeah,
Joe Cirque. So
exactly.
that should be really good. I think
It should be really good. I saw the panelists, and yeah, that should be really good. And hopefully, I know that Joe always comes from it from a very practical point of view as well. So that's really nice. I think that's what we want to see, right? That's, as teachers, as trainers, we want to see what we can do with AI rather than being scared of AI, because there's always that kind of, that fear, I guess, and that kind of trepidation about what it's going to do to us. So looking forward to that. And yeah, the signature event, we've got a Cambridge signature event on Friday morning.
Oh yeah, that's true.
that's going to be really good. Looking forward to that one.
Yeah, it's called The Power of One.
It's very interesting.
Yeah, it should be really interesting. So we've got, let me get this right. We've got Kate Brereton, we've got Sarah Mercer, and we've got Cindy Ford. So I think Kate's going to kind of come at this from a kind of individual perspective. Like, what can you do as an individual teacher to kind of make a difference to your teaching community and to the planet? And then I think I'm right in saying that Sarah is kind of taking it slightly more, like broadening it out to the school community and your local community.
Yeah.
And then Cindy Ford's looking at it from a more global perspective. So kind of moving outwards from the individual, like what can you do to make a difference teaching wise and sustainability wise. So yeah, it should be really interesting.
Oh, well, and again, 3 really dynamic different speakers as well. So I'm looking forward to seeing those dynamics as well.
Absolutely. And I love the fact that signature events like the ones that CUP have are very intriguing. I don't know how you feel about them, but I'm always looking forward to going to the signature events because they make me ask questions about my own practices, about what's going on. And I think that this signature event is very important, especially when I saw the power of one and the word community as well, which is something important because in the ELT community, we have got a very strong presence, don't we?
Yeah, and you definitely feel it here at IATEFL. I think you feel that sense of community and that sense of like everybody kind of working towards the same thing. I also really like it. I like that focus this year more than ever because I think it's a really important counterpoint to the whole AI side. So that we still have this kind of human focused approach as well. It's not just all about the tech. So
absolutely. So we've started the interview a little bit the opposite way because we were talking before the interview. We were talking about the conference and about the events because there are so many things going on. And so Rachel, let's start with you. Can you tell us a few things about your journey in the field?
Yeah, sure. So, my journey in the field, right. So I started teaching as a secondary teacher of drama. I actually got into English language teaching when I moved to Australia. So I kind of fell into it by accident, but it was kind of a natural transition for me. I realized that a lot of the approaches and strategies that I would use in the drama classroom really just translated so well, pardon the pun, into the English language teaching classroom, basically. So I started working with primary students, with secondary students. I moved to Italy. I studied for my Delta, and then I never left because I think I kind of found through teacher training, through working with teachers and through, working with teachers in completely different contexts, I found purpose and challenge. And I still find that. I think the classroom is always changing. So I think things for us are always changing. We're constantly being challenged. I've been in Spain now working with teachers for 8 years. We've started now to work with teachers in Italy as well, and France. I was in the Netherlands last week. So it's always really interesting for me to discover what teachers have in common, but also the differences, and then to think about what approaches we can use as a team to best support teachers. So that's me in a nutshell.
This is brilliant. What are some of the differences that you see in the different countries that you visit, especially in terms of teacher education?
That's a great one. Yeah, I think it's fundamentally all about the way that teachers are trained. So that can look quite different naturally, according to the private language school context versus the mainstream school context. It can also just be down to a question of teacher confidence as well. I think when we work with teachers, a big part of it is trying to spread that motivation and that kind of passion for teaching, showing that teachers actually really, if you have the tools, your life will be easier and you will enjoy your job more. And it's kind of those moments with teachers, right, where they go, okay, I get it, and this can be rewarding.
Yeah, it's all about having just space, right, to do the job. And if you get that, then your job is you know go into the classroom and talk to people and help them to talk back. And that's kind of what it's all about. And it's such a rewarding thing to be able to do. But I think it's also kind of, there's another aspect of it, which is the support. There's an announcement going on here. One of the differences, I think, is the support that teachers get in terms of that space, and in terms of how much time they're allowed to kind of focus on their own development, like time, you know, how many contact hours they have every week, and whether they've actually got any time to focus on, you know, thinking about how to do things better, or if they're just trying to manage what they've got, which is, for so many teachers, that's all they can think about, because they've just got so much.
Yeah, definitely. And those moments to sit down together as teachers, like what we're doing right now, right? This is what you were talking about earlier, the beauty of conferences, the beauty of IATEFL. We actually have a moment to stop, breathe, think, come together, discuss, have a moan, complain about things, but then also think about, okay, well, how are you dealing with that? Tell me. Go to talks that you never thought, you'd never considered before, like you were saying with the signature events, kind of themes and topics that you might not have considered, and constantly challenging ourselves. But I think for teachers, when we work with teachers, Matt, we always try to allow that space as well for them to talk to each other, right? I'm not the expert, the only expert in the room. The room is full of experts, and it's about giving them that moment to share.
Absolutely. You mentioned before, Rachel, tools and resources. What would you say is one important resource for teachers nowadays?
Oh, I think that question's for you, Matt. I think that's a Matt question.
I think it depends a little bit on needs, depends a little bit on what teachers need. One of the best resources teachers can be given is time, as we've discussed. In the conference so far, we've talked a lot about, in what I've seen, there's been a lot of talk about sustainability. So Cambridge has got lots of resources for teachers in that area. We've got a sustainability framework, and we've got activity cards that teachers can use to kind of bring sustainability into their classroom more, whether they're using a Cambridge coursebook or not. Mm-hmm. So there's lots of resources of that kind, but time is really important. And then probably colleagues and just being able to connect with people. And it's, sometimes teachers do have time within their institution to get together, and that's great. But if you can get together with people from a different context, from a different institution, or from a completely different country, as we are here, you just get that added benefit of different perspectives and just seeing how other people do things.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And finding what works for you, right? As well. Like Matt said, there's so many resources available. And I think it's, not everything is going to be appropriate for you, for your classroom, for your learners. So it's about that. It's about finding what works for you as a teacher.
Yeah. Absolutely. So, Matt, you've told us how busy you are at the conference. And you've had some very interesting talks. But what I would like the people to know is who you are, your journey in ELT so far, and what inspired you to give these talks at the conference.
Oh, okay. So it sounds like did you train as a teacher at uni, Rachel? Was that your?
Yeah. After university,
Okay.
So I went back to university and did a PGCE, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So my first area of study was music, and I finished my music degree and kind of decided that I wasn't going to make a career as a musician. Then I became an accountant, and then only after that did I find my way into ELT. So I did a CELTA at IH London, and then taught in the UK for a while. Then I moved to Spain, taught in Spain, in Madrid for a couple of years. And from there I went to Malaysia, and I worked with the British Council in Malaysia for about 4 years. And that's where I first got into teacher training. So after that, joined Cambridge, and I've been at Cambridge now for about 7 years, working with teachers, delivering training to them, designing training programs and training materials, and working with other trainers like Rachel as well. So it's a really varied job. I love it. I love the opportunity to have a broader impact. So as a teacher, you have a very direct impact on the learners that you teach. And as a trainer, you don't quite get the same feedback in terms of, you don't see your impact so directly as a trainer, I don't think. But hopefully you have a broader impact in that you work with teachers who then go on to do things better with their own students. So, yeah.
As teacher trainers, both of you, where do you find the inspiration to drive your trainees? Because, of course, one of the things that we don't normally talk about or usually talk about is how trainers get inspired.
That's a good question. Where do
I feel like a big part of the job is just being passionate about what you do.
Yeah.
Right? I don't need too much inspiration I don't need too much kind of fuel to get excited about teaching and teacher training. So I feel that's probably the same for you, Rachel, and for most of the colleagues that we work with. Kind of love what we do, and we loved it as teachers, and that's why we became trainers.
Exactly. It comes down to education, right? It comes down to that matters to me. I'm passionate about that. Everything we do as trainers, as teachers, is all about the learner. It's all about the student. It's all about them, their future, what matters to them, creating a brighter future in some, tiny, small way or very big way. So it's how, and the teachers, that's their incredible role, right, in the classroom is to have that opportunity with their students. So it's then about us how we can help each teacher to be able to do that. So yeah, I agree. It's not something I need to kind of work on. I think if you're passionate about education, I think it's just there.
Yeah, but it also helps, I think, when you see your successes, and when you so if you're a teacher in the classroom and you see or you hear a learner, get something and communicate better in English because they've learned from you or they've learned from their classmates, that's a massive incentive to keep going, because that's what makes the job so enjoyable. So for me, it's the same thing, but with teachers, and kind of seeing how that works with teachers. And on Monday at the PCE, there was so much of that. There was so much interaction and learning from all the people in the room, not just the person at the front. So that's what inspires
I think we're
me.
inspired. That's it. We're inspired by the teachers as well, right? That's what happens for us on a weekly basis, is when you're in touch with so many different, as we said, so many different teachers, so many different contexts. You'll hear things that I hadn't considered. I'd not thought about that, and we make sure that there's the space to do that. So we're learning as well. So that's nice. I think just being in a job where you feel like no 2 days are the same and you're constantly learning as well, I think is really rewarding.
Absolutely. And what themes are you interested in this year's conference? What sessions will you be attending?
So my main interest is teacher education. So I've seen some really interesting stuff. There was a great panel discussion yesterday, led by Jason Anderson. This afternoon, I'm going to talks by Gary Barkhazen, Simon Borg, Nelson Ardito. So yeah, I love hearing about everything that's going on in terms of teacher education.
And Rachel, what about you?
So as I said, obviously the AI strand, but also I'm looking for task-based learning sessions. So I know there's one on Friday, Jane Willis, I think it is. So I'm going to go to that. I feel like next year we will be talking about things like task-based, problem-based learning a lot more for the classroom. So lots of critical thinking skills for our students. I think that's something that's going to come back around again, and I can't wait for that, because as I said, as a trained drama teacher, it's what I'm all about.
This is brilliant. And have you seen anything particular that makes you think that task-based will be coming back next year?
I think like with everything, right? I think I was talking about task-based learning, I think about 10 years ago now.
How long has Jane Willis been talking about task-based learning?
So I think this is one thing that, you know, and it's funny, isn't it? These trends, they'll come back around, and quite rightly so, because I think these things should. And I think, as well, as Matt said before, talking about the kind of reaction we're having to AI, what's better than thinking about critical thinking for our students, right? Which is what fundamentally task-based, problem-based learning is all about. This, it's helping our learners to become independent thinkers, to think critically, to not trust the first kind of version you see of things. So I think this will be the natural. I think other things will come as well in response to the AI, but I think this will be one of them. So I'm excited to see now what happens next year.
Yeah. Every time these things come back around, things have changed slightly.
Yeah.
So we're talking about task-based learning, but now, you know, there's the added influence of AI as well. So, it's not quite the same as it was before. It's evolving.
We could even say it's something like the fashion industry. So trends come and go as
Yeah,
well.
yeah, totally. Yeah.
Brilliant. Will you have any time to walk around Brighton, do something that you could advise people as well to do?
We have an event this evening. There's
We do.
Cambridge University Press and Assessment has an event in the I360. So this super tall tower, and there's like a donut that.
Are you scared of heights?
It's not that high, is it?
Hopefully not. Hopefully not.
Ask me at the top. Yeah.
I am happy because I cannot join, unfortunately. We have got a dynamic duet, so I'm ready to fight with my other
Of
colleagues.
course.
But I would have loved to come to the event. So what's going to happen in the event? Give me a sneak peek, please.
Yeah, we're starting, I believe, with Find Someone Who. So, classic ELT activity. And then we've got short talks from Scott Thornbury and Penny who are presenting a brand new book. It's called 100 Great Activities. So it's a distillation of the best activities from the Cambridge handbook series. And they'll be sharing that. And then we go up and celebrate at the top of the tower.
I'm so jealous I will not be there. So thank you very much for joining me today.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Good luck with the event. Please come and tell me how it went, because I am honestly glad that I will not be attending. But please enjoy, and we're looking forward to seeing you again.
Thank you so
Thanks.
much.
So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Welcome to Brighton, the vibrant seaside city ensconced along the southern coast of England. Prepare to embark on a journey of discovery as we uncover the fascinating and quirky facts that make Brighton truly unique. Did you know Brighton played a pioneering role in several historical moments? Believe it or not, the skies above Brighton witnessed the world's first commercial flight in 1911. A small plane took off from nearby Shoreham carrying a rather unusual cargo, a box of light bulbs. Fast forward a few decades, and Brighton again made history by opening the doors to the UK's first land-based casino in 1962. This added another layer of excitement to the city's already vibrant nightlife scene.
And I'm standing here with two Hornby scholars that we talked about, gossiped about, I have to admit, to the two of you, early on in one of the interviews. Javid and Sumaya, can I ask the two of you first to introduce yourself to our lovely viewers? Ladies first?
Hello, I'm Sumaya Akhtar. I'm from Bangladesh.
And hello, I'm Joy Jeffrey and I'm from Afghanistan.
But you came in here from Exeter, and that has everything to do with that two words, Hornby Scholar. Now, what does that actually mean? What's a Hornby Scholar?
Hornby Scholar, actually, it's an educational trust which provides a scholarship for English teachers across the global south. And here we're coming from the Exeter University, and for the next 3 years, Hornby is going to be like partnering in partnership with the University of Exeter. So the Hornby actually provides a scholarship for English teachers across the global south, like countries. So this year we are here, like 9 scholars are there at the University of Exeter. Like we have scholars from, like for me, including me, I'm from Afghanistan, Bangladesh, Iran. We have from Cameroon, we have from Brazil, and many other countries.
That must be so exciting to
It is
have
exciting.
all that educational experience into one, like intercultural educational experience into one classroom.
That is true. That is true. Exactly, that is.
And anything you've learned, like what is one of the best things about the program so far?
So basically, the program is entirely designed for ELT teachers, English language teachers.
Yeah.
Those who are like teaching English as an EFL or ESL in the global south. So the program is specifically designed for the needs of these teachers, based on the needs of, for example, the current time that we know. So we have varieties of options there as modules that the students, every individual student, they can go for it, and they have options. They can choose it, like whether which modules they wish to take for that. So I think that's so interesting. I mean, we have varieties of options that we can go for it, except the first term that we have 3 core modules that everyone has to take that. And the second term, we have optional modules that we have to go for 4 modules, and that's interesting. It means that you're not supposed to take a module which you're not interested. Maybe, for example, you're less like. I'm sure that no one is going to be there who is not interested in those modules, because they're specifically designed for this context.
Oh, but that sounds lovely. So you come from all over the world here to study, to become an English teacher.
Exactly.
And then you get to choose your own program, basically.
Exactly. That is true. Just to mention that those who are coming here, they're like experienced English teachers. It's not like actually the program is designed. It's in a way that it is awarded to experienced English teachers. I mean, those who have at least a minimum of some years of experience in teaching in their context or in a different country, but it must be in the global south.
But that is fascinating.
That is.
And then to get that experience of studying in Exeter for a year, but also to have the experience of everybody else's experiences.
Exactly.
And what it's like.
I didn't get your question.
What it's like to have and take all that home then also after this.
The point is that the fundamental core of this Hornby Educational Trust is that they're going to train you here in the UK, for example, at the University of Exeter this year for the next 2 more years. But after that, they're expecting us that we have to go back home and to, in a way, that transfer the knowledge that we have gained here, being here in the UK for 1 year. We have to transfer this knowledge to our home countries for other ELT teachers, because this is not possible. This is a chance which not everyone can take this. So we have to somehow transfer the knowledge to others, those who are in need.
But that is a beautiful concept, and pass it on and share it.
Exactly. We have to do that. It's like for example, we had a presentation yesterday on CPD, like the constraints and affordances. It's a way, like, for example, we're going to be engaged in CPD courses, like in teacher development courses. It has to be, because that is the core aim of this trust. Is Hornby Trust. So we have to, it's not only for us that, okay, we got this scholarship, we have awarded this scholarship, we have come here to the UK and study. But the point is that how we can contribute to the community, how we can contribute to our country, our context. That's the main point.
That is lovely. Lovely thought. And then speaking of contributions and contributing and sharing information, what's up with the buzz yesterday at the Skyline Bar? Because it got really good and loud, I heard. But I hear the 2 of you are to blame for that. So what happened yesterday?
It's actually me and my friends and colleagues who were the scholarship recipients of Hornby. We were fortunate enough to have presented at the Skyline yesterday. So yes, there was a little buzz, but it was a beautiful buzz. hopefully didn't disturb you. And it was mostly about our presentation that Jawid has just talked about. And the presentation was about constraints and affordances in continuous professional development, that we say CPD, in our global south context. Now, as you can see in education, of course, there are so many constraints for teachers and educators. Sometimes we are frustrated, and the limitations repeatedly push us to a wall that we think that we cannot climb over. However, we found out that wait a minute, we can actually do something. We can afford to do something from our own positions. So our presentation, it was basically the nine of us telling our own stories, our stories from different countries, and we found out that we do have something in very similar. And what was the thing that was similar? That we were able to overcome some of the constraints absolutely all on our own. And the help that we were looking for, or probably the kind of training that we were looking for, we sought them out, and without any guidance sometimes. And sometimes there were guidances, but it was us initiating that thing. And so we wanted to share our experiences with everyone who are facing the same kind of frustration that we did, that they probably thought that they could not progress because there were no opportunities. So we just wanted to share our story, saying that wait a minute, there are possibilities, there are something that we can do even if we think we are helpless. That means we are not completely, out of choices. This was all about our presentation, and hopefully everyone liked it. That was the
Well,
buzz.
that is what I've heard. Can you share something about the constraints that were discussed yesterday?
Oh yes, the constraints. Even if we mention them, we already become a bit sad. There are situations like wars going on. One of our colleagues, who is also a scholarship recipient, just like us, he is from Syria.
Mhm.
And as you can see, the civil war going on, and there were times when their students, even the educators, were homeless there. So education had to take the backseat in that kind of situation. So how could a teacher, an educator from Syria, could take things in control and probably give something to the students that would maybe shift their attention from the sadness, the soreness that they're suffering from, and to the something broader like education? And there is one of our colleagues who is from Iran. They had been suffering from segregation for years. So they had been separated from all these opportunities that had been offered to the rest of the countries of the world. So Iran itself had been kind of sanctioned.
Yeah.
And if it is seen that there are opportunities and courses and modules online that are available for all the teachers in the world, it's not available for them. So how did a teacher from Iran had overcome that kind of obstacles to become an ELT teacher that she is now, right? So these are a few examples of the constraints that we have talked about.
I am so sorry to have missed it. I mean, like you said, we all face constraints when it comes to being an educator, but these are the kind of constraints that you'd read in biographies and see in films, and they make me feel very, very spoiled to be teaching here. In sort of a safe environment, no segregation, no war, no homelessness, or massive homelessness anyway. Um, it's humbling. What is it for the two of you like to then be here? Because we talk about education and the troubles we face, like raising salary, smaller group sizes. How is it to listen to all that while having the background of facing war?
If I can speak on behalf of my friend, it is very traumatizing in the first place to step out in the world when you know that your home is falling apart.
Yeah.
And then trying to distract yourself and accept that you're in a new environment, and here you would not get bombed, you would not have to return to a house which might not be there anymore, and it's continuously there, the fear of losing something that you have probably started to feel comfortable at. And in that situation, I would say that my colleague had been performing very well, and their experiences in fact enlighten us and humble us as well, that I think since I am from Bangladesh, I feel like I am also privileged in ways that I have never realized. And after meeting my colleagues from Syria and Iran, I can definitely say that I am privileged. And not many of the people in the world have these opportunities that I have received. I'm sure my friend Javed has also his experience that he wants to share.
Yeah, as I was talking like yesterday, like one of the main points about the constraints of CPD and the global south, like for example, as you mentioned also about the large classes, we have, for example, we have here educators from Kenya, from Cameroon, even in my country we have very, very large classes comparing, for example, now here in the UK, like we have classes, for example, at the university level or school level, we have classes with maximum students of 15, 20. I think even that's also a higher number. But in our context, one of the main constraints in the global south is the higher number of students in classes. The
So
huge
how
classes.
many are we talking about?
60.
60 in a class. Like an
Yeah.
average classroom would be 60
Yeah,
students.
more than that. In my context, for example,
Wow.
where I come from, Afghanistan, if I just give an example of, for example, public schools, universities, and universities, for example, if you consider for lecturers, sometimes it's getting 200 students in one class.
Wow.
That's this is I think you know, it's like quite like a complicated situation for the teacher to pass the knowledge to teach the students. We have the same situation for schools as well. Like for example, for public schools in Afghanistan, we have very large classes, even 50 students here in one class. Sometimes lack of resources there, you know, like for example, no technology, like even some basic equipments there, especially in the remote areas of Afghanistan. So these were the main constraints that we as educators in the global south, we were facing. On the other hand, we also spoke about the affordances, that how did we, for example, as educators overcome these challenges, and how did we make it possible, and how we can do, or how we can help our friends or colleagues there back home, and what we can take away, what could be the takeaway here from the University of Exeter, from the Hornby Scholarship, from the UK, how we can, for example, try to engage, try to make the learning, the teaching in a good way, in an effective way.
Yeah. So last question for both of you. If you imagine 5 or 10 years from now, like you have all the experiences from here, but you go back to your 50, 60 or more students in a classroom, like how does your future look like? A regular office day in 5 years time, what will you take from here back home?
I think now that I see that it's quite complicated to teach, it's difficult, it's impossible in a way that to teach, for example, a class of 40, 50 students, because the teaching, the learning process does not happen there. We have to, in a modern teaching or education, we have to focus, give time on specific students. Nowadays, we have the terminologies of personalization. Personalization, it means that we have to give this space for every student's needs based on their own pace. But this is not what we can say is possible in our context. Basically, for example, if you consider Bangladesh, if I consider my country, Afghanistan, this is not happening. The students, they do not have this, most of the teachers, they unfortunately, they do not know the concept of personalization, what personalization means, and how, for example, we can personalize the learning and teaching process. So I think if I go back and find this situation, I think it's quite complicated for me, because teaching a large class, that's a big challenge for a teacher. Not in the regard of the number of the students in a class, but also as many numbers that we have in a class, the levels are going to be mixed. Teaching a mixed level, that's another concept, a big issue for a teacher, how to engage with the mixed level students.
So you'll go back and advocate for smaller classes and more personalized learning?
Of course, it should be, because we know nowadays that it's like no one learns equally as others do, or no one, for example, learns in a way that others do, other students do. No one is equal in learning process, or in, like, for example, even the teachers also. So we do have to, I think, personalize, or if I could contribute to help, for example, to have a smaller classes in my context, that would be so lovely for me, and that is like one of my aims and ambitions.
It's a lovely ambition. Can I ask also quickly, what's your takeaway? What's your, like, you go back and advocate for what?
As you can see, one of the mottos of AS Hornby Educational Trustee is to have equal education for everyone, right? So they are, in a way, training us so that we can have a quality education that we can take back to our students. And my ambition is a bit, it could be ambitious, but simple. That is, why not create more educators who are aware of what are the constraints and how we are going to overcome them. Javid has talked about a lot of constraints. In fact, he was talking about larger classrooms. And I think that is definitely an issue. But in my context, I was finding out recently about the whole use of technology, the whole digital literacy in a lot of classrooms and how they are not properly implemented. And I was also looking for that kind of solution which would be suitable in my own context. Of course, I cannot immediately change it like a fairy godmother, but I can definitely try to integrate technology in my classroom. Of course, we have limitations. Technology, like in a classroom, you would like some projectors and you would expect your students to have smart devices. Sometimes you would give them assignments that are based on some kind of internet programs or something that you have found in a website. What if your student do not have those smart devices? That is the biggest challenge that a teacher could have faced while planning a lesson, that you plan a lesson expecting that all of your students have that privilege, and you would be shocked when someone do not have that. So I was always thinking of how to overcome them, of course. So my initial target is to raise awareness among the teachers, and then when the students are in the classroom, spread that awareness to them. So when they finish their education, maybe become an aware teacher after completion of their education. That's my ambition.
So advocate for equality and digitalization and technology.
Yes,
and
that's
access. Lovely. And can I just say, very humbling experience for me to talk to the two of you, and I think this is what IATEFL and the Hornby Scholarship is about, like share the context and learn from each other's context. And I have definitely learned from the two of you. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so I'm very excited. I'm about to go and give my poster presentation. If anyone's not too sure what that is, it's when you prepare a poster of your research or whatever it is that you're interested in or that you want to say, and you stand by it and people come along and ask you questions, and then you can explain your research that way. So my colleague and I decided this is the way that we're going to go for IATEFL this year. We have been working on an article about mentoring in the Czech Republic, which is our context, and we've put the key findings and our methodology into this poster, and we're going to display it, and hopefully people will come and talk to us. But you know what, rather than just talking about it, why don't we go and have a look?
My presentation today to raise some awareness for teachers and educators in PBLL, which is project-based language learning, in evaluating and assessing our students and learners' performances and outputs and products. Sometimes we teachers have cognitive biases, judgmental biases. We also call them educational biases, and sometimes we are mistaken, to be honest. And here I conducted a kind of survey on 20 teachers from 5 different countries. They're from Iran, Serbia, Greece, Ukraine, and Turkey. So when you go through the QR code, you're going to see all these 5 questions there as well. And also please go to the QR code, especially for the fifth one. Please reflect on yourself as well, see what you're going to do, and hope it raises awareness. Thank you.
Dika. Hello, my name is Barisha Chiplam. I'm the second year PhD student from University of Sussex, and this is my work. I'm studying about the perceptions of EMI lecture in Thai classroom. So then I want to know how they think about English and their own language.
Annie, here's the poster telling everybody about the research that we've done. So in future, if anyone wants to do a poster, come, display your work, and have a chat and tell everyone what you've been doing.
And I'm back. And this time sitting here with Carol. Now, the last interview, we talked a bit about equality. And I think that's what we're going to talk about as well. Before we do, could you introduce yourself to our lovely viewers?
Yes, I'm Carol Leatherby. I'm based in San Francisco, California, where I'm a teacher, trainer, teacher educator, materials writer, and I write books for teachers as well.
And you're doing a talk tomorrow.
I'm going to talk tomorrow, which is called Examining Inequality in ELT, Language, Power and Patriarchy. And do you want me to talk a bit more about it?
Yes. Any spoilers you can give us? Please do.
So what I'm going to be doing is kind of tracing the history of inequality and really looking back through history at inequality and how it happened. So really looking closely at the roots of inequality and then seeing how it comes up right through the ELT industry, how the ELT industry is really founded on those kind of patriarchal principles and how that it shows itself not just in the industry as a whole but through language as well. So
how does it show itself?
How does it show itself in language?
Yes.
Yeah. So language, obviously we have, three main ideas there, with the idea of firstness, the idea that we always put the male form first, right? Even though even when people try and be more neutral, they'll still say instead of she or he, people will still say he or she. Like, there's no reason for that. Like, no. And then, so there's firstness, and then there's also the idea of the male generic. So just referring to, like when we say astronaut, people just assume it's a male. Yeah. And we have a lot of those, particularly professions, which we kind of think of as generic male professions. We have a couple of female ones too, but they're really much lower prestige. And also, they're so female related. So for example, nurse is one example, secretary is another one. So we have those two, firstness, the generic male, and then we also have the idea of what's called semantic derogation. So the idea that female terms, the equivalent female terms for the same thing as the male term, takes on all these other pejorative meanings. So, things like the way we use the word lady compared to the way we use the word gentleman, the way we use the word spinster compared to the word bachelor, the way we use the word bitch. I don't know if I can say that.
Well, you have now, so let's just keep it up. We got the okay from Sean. Just on the record, we have the okay.
Compared to the word dog, how as I was saying, a lot of the female terms take on these like kind of pejorative meanings.
Well, that's true. That's true. If someone calls me a spinster, that's definitely not a compliment.
No, right,
Whereas
exactly.
bachelor is, in a way, it is, or at least it's
exactly.
neutral.
Yes. At the very least, yes. So that's in terms of the language, and then in terms of the history, I'll be talking tomorrow about how there's nothing natural about women's subordinate place to men in this world, which is the argument that, for example, Darwin, Wilson, evolutionary biologists use. And I'll look at how even in nature with primates, for example, that's not the case. So we'll be looking at that. And then we'll look at how patriarchy actually began, and kind of thinking about, some people have argued that, it was just, there's this one point in history where women just became defeated and subordinated to men. And that's absolutely not the case. It was something that happened slowly over time and in different places. And we'll be like looking at that, exactly what it was. Was it agriculture? I'll be discussing whether it was agriculture that did it. We'll also, I'll be looking at another alternative theory, which seems to be, I think, more likely. I'm not going to give that one away though. You have to go and see that.
Have to go and see. But you said it's influencing language, but it's also influencing the industry.
Yes.
How can we see that if we're talking about ELT and
okay, yes. So I'll be talking about that tomorrow too. But we know that the majority of classroom teachers are women. Right. And yet, if you look at the fundaments, the principles of our industry, they are based on ideas which were put forward by men. And if you look at the kind of the canon of English language teaching, they're all men. And I'll be talking about why that's the case and why we still kind of look towards the men have always been the kind of thought leaders and the authority figures, if you like, in English language teaching. And there's no reason for that except for history and patriarchy.
Yeah, and history repeats. So it's good to talk about that and to stop it. And also, I think back to language, as something that we as language teachers
that's absolutely
can
right.
use in our classrooms. Like
that's exactly
I can't change. Well, I try to change the whole industry, but I can start in my classroom with the language.
Yes.
What can I do? Because I struggle with this. I was at a women's library early on, and they had like female literature, and they focused on female literature.
Yeah.
And I read the debate. It's like if you focus too much on female, it's like it's special, whereas it should be normal. But then a lot of normal libraries have mostly predominantly male literature or male written literature. Like, how do I do this right?
Right. Okay. So that's actually the subject for another talk, which is not the one I'm giving tomorrow. But
there's a sequel coming. It's so good tomorrow. There's a sequel coming.
So, but yes, we will be looking at that in the future. I'll be talking exactly about that, how we can, as classroom teachers, influence, obviously through the kind of language that we use, but also through the kind of language that we teach learners, and certainly teaching them things like, gender neutral terms for professions, for example. That's one way we can do it. And teaching them about semantic derogation, showing them that, male forms and female forms very often have these kind of different connotations, and these often, for female terms, pejorative forms. But I think the biggest thing that comes out of all of this is awareness, that we have to be aware of what we're doing when we're teaching, have to be aware of the kind of language we're using and the kind of messages we might be transmitting through language, even just the way we talk to to our students, that, actually being aware, do I address female students differently from the way I address male students, especially with children, because, that's where it's starting to go in. We know because of, neuroplasticity, that the idea of gender becomes part of your brain biology. So, we have a big part to play, I think, as teachers.
Yeah, and I think it's something that, I think everybody will immediately say, no, I don't treat my male and female students differently.
Yeah.
And yet, like you said, there's so much in our language that it's almost impossible to say we don't.
Yeah. And, it's easy to check that is, record yourself and, or ask someone to observe you teaching and see who you kind of pay more attention to, who gets to speak more in your class. All those kinds of things, are easy to actually check and can give you some really interesting information about your own kind of implicit biases, perhaps.
And we do have them, and they influence everything.
Yeah.
In fact, the more I read about this, the more shocking, like one shocking fact after another.
Yes.
What are some of the most shocking things you've read or found out that you were like, this is why I'm speaking about this. This is
Well, that's yes. I know we can laugh about it, but you're right. There are so many shocking things coming out. I mean, in terms of, for example, misogyny. Misogyny is on the rise in schools. For example, in the UK, there was a report last year about how just sexist language and sexist behavior in the classroom is just rife, and even sexual harassment in schools goes often unpunished. It goes unreported. So this idea of teachers like really being aware of this, and whenever they notice anything like this, like challenging it and actually trying to do something about it, having some policy, making sure there's some policy in your school, so it's clear that is not tolerated, it's not accepted in your school. But yeah, I think that's the thing that shocked me most from doing all this, how we all kind of think on the surface that, things are moving towards equality, whereas the statistics and the research and the evidence show that it's not. No.
So we feel like we're moving towards equality, but actually, in a lot of ways, we're
not. I mean, look at the gender pay gap. It's not improving.
No, it's not.
So, those kinds of things.
So what is one of the worst things in your personal opinion? Is it like, I mean, you talked already about the harassment in schools and sort of the safety, I guess.
Well, that has to be the worst consequence of it, doesn't it? But I think that the point that I'm trying to make is that, we see this at every level. So if there's any kind of sexism, misogyny in something someone says in the classroom, that kind of reflects society, if you like, and it's there, it's in the students' brains. I saw a teacher. This is on the surface, it seems like a really kind of innocent thing, but I observed a teacher in San Francisco, which is a pretty progressive place. A male teacher. He was teaching PE, where the court where I was doing some exercise on the next court over, and he was like telling them, they had to do some silly exercise, lifting their knees or something like this as fast as they could or whatever. And he said to this one boy, even the girls are going faster than you. Now, I mean, on the surface, it's like just a throwaway comment, isn't it? But that message is going into both the girls' and the boys' heads.
And the subliminal message is men are better, or boys should be better at PE than girls.
Yep, exactly. So that's what I mean by, on the most serious things are like the misogyny, as I've talked about, and the awful things that you hear about, and then the on the like the surface level, you know, in the classroom, these kind of innocent things, you know, they're there too, and they're reinforcing that message.
So you're saying it's like we have all these extremes, but instead of focusing on those extremes, we should just look at the language and the basis, because
Well,
it
that's-
is the basis of
Yeah, that's one side of it, I think. Yes, because well, I think the basis is the brain, is how right from the beginning, you know, before the child is even born, we're already like talking to the child differently in the womb, depending on if it's a girl or if it's a boy.
Do we?
Yep. Research has shown this.
So
really
how,
interesting.
How, if I were pregnant right now, how would people talk to my baby boy differently than my baby
Just,
girl?
you know, it
in-
depends on obviously your culture, but you know, for example, in the UK, it might be like, "Are you all right in there, mate?" Something like that, compared to, "Oh, how's my little," you know, I don't know.
Yeah, so intonation, different
Yeah,
words,
yeah,
and also
exactly.
already programming a certain
Yes,
role
yes,
in life.
Yes, exactly.
And
Yeah.
if that already happens in the womb, then you can imagine that by the time kids go to school and end up in our classrooms.
Yeah, that's why they think that kids by the age of about 5, or I think it's 5 or 6 years old, they're at their most kind of hyper gender aware. So, you know, that's when they don't want to play, you know, with boys, or they don't want to play with girls, etc. So, yeah, it starts early, and it you know, gets in there early.
And then it only gets worse. I'm going to say on a personal note, but
Yes.
it usually does.
Yes.
So you said before, like, talk about policies. What can we do, in your opinion? Because this is not like spoilers on the talk, because we have to just simply attend. But like, what can we do if we want to fight this? We should notice this. But
Yeah,
then how do
that's-
we act
challenge
on
it.
this?
That's one of the issues, and that's something, as I say, that I'll be talking about at a future date. But one of the issues that we found in the reports and the research is that teachers actually feel really unprepared for dealing with this in the classroom. And, you know, I think that's an area too for like helping teachers to like recognize when, you know, something's going on in the class in terms of something that's said or some kind of behavior that happens in the class, and then actually, you know, challenging it and making sure you know what the school policy is, and making sure it gets like shut down right
Yeah.
there. But you know, this here we're talking more about kind of schools, regular schools, rather than you know, ELT classrooms. You don't usually find that kind of behavior in the ELT world. I think what we're looking at more is thinking about how we can use you know, what we teach learners, and the way we teach learners in the classroom to help to kind of you know, combat any kind of sexist language and sexist stereotyping.
Yeah, because that's the thing. You have the general school things that, like you said, nip it in the bud. If you hear something, even if something small, just discuss it, make people aware of it.
Yeah.
But then we're teaching people language, and
Yeah.
language, as you said, is unequal.
Yeah.
So we're basically teaching them inequality.
Yeah.
If we're not careful, we're teaching them inequality.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why it's so important to be aware of these issues, not just the language, but also like I mentioned, the stereotyping too. Just being really careful with those issues in our teaching.
So next time I have a simple reading assignment about a nurse, I don't just worry about what level is it, how do I test the language? I should also mind, like, is it...
Yeah, are you reinforcing gender stereotypes? I mean,
Yeah.
it will depend on the text that you use, obviously, but it's pretty likely that if you have a text about a nurse, it will be about a female nurse.
That's going to be an interesting one to test. And I'd invite everyone listening to just test that. Because I think I did read about a test where they asked people, they gave them a text about a nurse, and I think one about a surgeon. And then they had people like so fill in the blanks.
Yeah.
And crazy amounts of people thought Yeah. Nurses were women and surgeons were men.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
Now, not everybody is going to be able to attend your talk. Not even here, but definitely the people watching from home. Like how could they educate themselves? Like what could we read? Where can we find you online? Like how, if we want to do this and think about this, where can we find more information?
Well, you can certainly look at my website, because I will have all the slides and everything on my website, which is cleatherby.com. But also there will be a book about this coming out in the near future.
Oh, can you get some spoilers on that?
No.
Oh, there's a question coming in.
Somebody on the live stream says 89.3% of nurses, I can't check that, of course, in the UK are women. So is it a stereotype to suggest that nurses are female?
No, and that's I think that's not the point. The point is more the other way around, that whenever we say doctor, we assume it's a male, and whenever we say nurse, we assume it's a female, even if it isn't. So that not really.
I do think that like, aside from that, there's like a small 20% of male nurses that we're then ignoring.
Yeah.
And like you said, like 6 or 7 is when we're most gender biased.
Yeah.
So when we talk about nurses, we teach kids, like lower levels, young learners, we teach them also that nurses.
Well, and that's part of also, it kind of perpetuates itself, so that, nursing becomes an acceptable profession for women.
Yeah.
So, it's all kind of, it's all related.
It's a bit of a chicken and egg, though, then, isn't it? Because, we are talking about nurses and there are more female nurses in the UK, but then is that because of the language, or is the language reflecting that there's more women in the profession? It's chicken or egg. It's, I think, the universal question of life. But there's a book and there's a website. So I want to read, I want to know more. I'll check out the website, and there is a book coming soon.
Yes, in the near future. On this topic.
Exciting. Exciting.
Yes.
Any words for anyone listening right now who is inspired by this, who can't attend tomorrow?
Well, certainly, please contact me. I'd be glad to pass on all kinds of interesting reading material on this. I mean, the Origins of Inequality by Angela Saini is a great place to start in terms of looking at the history of inequality, which is what I'll be talking about tomorrow.
Oh, homework. Good book to read. And having said that, let's stay tuned.
Hi there. Whether you're at the IATEFL conference in Brighton or watching us from home, remember to take a movement break. Shall we? Let's take a walk. While you're walking, it is important to loosen up your neck, roll your shoulders, and stretch your legs. This will allow you to release tension and also boost your energy levels. Remember that taking care of your mental health is as important as taking care of your physical health. Try these tips, stay healthy, and stay safe.
Hello and welcome to the IATEFL shop. Now we've got lots of things that delegates might like, such as our notebooks in 3 different colours so that you can make notes on all the sessions. We've also got pin badges, which we started about 3 years ago, and we have one for each of the conferences so people can collect them through the years. We've got water bottles, we've got various other things. The most important point is that all of the proceeds go towards keeping IATEFL going so that we can contribute and support English language teachers around the world.
There's nothing in the back of the photograph for making notes.
I'm now joined by our lovely Jenny Dooley, who's joining us from Express Publishing. Hello, Jenny.
Hello, nice to be here again.
It's great to have you here. How are you doing? How are you enjoying the conference?
Oh, it's lovely. I've seen fantastic sessions. I've spoken to lots of different people. We've networked, we've socialized, we met up with friends that we only have the chance to meet sometimes, only once a year. So it's been great, yes.
Excellent. And you've been extremely busy since you've been here. I'm seeing Express Publishing absolutely everywhere. You sponsored the bags.
Yes.
Which are unfortunately, I don't have one here, but
It's
they're
all right.
very
I think
nice.
everybody has seen them. Everyone's walking around with the bags.
Absolutely. And you've had pop-up presentations.
Yeah, yeah.
And I noticed that you did a presentation on teaching in the present and in the past.
Yeah. My presentation was actually titled Teaching in the Past or Teaching in the Present. And I've also included a little bit, a touch of the future in there too. But it was great. It was yesterday evening around 5:20. We had a very good attendance, and I was very glad to see, that people did actually manage to come and they weren't too tired, at 5:20. But it was great. Yeah, everybody was. They loved it. I mean, they even came today in the stand that they told me. So I was very happy about
That's
that.
the best feedback, isn't it? When people come and say thank you.
Absolutely.
Energizes you. Can you give us a little bit of a taster of what you spoke about, teaching in the past, the present, what's changed, what can we look forward to?
Basically, in the presentation, we talked a little bit about common practices that people used to do in the past, not just in teaching, but in their everyday life, and how things have changed today, which everyday life has affected the English language classroom. But I'm a person, so I got also affected by the fantastic sessions I saw, and I got influenced, So I kind of changed my presentation last minute, and I added certain things that I saw from some of my wonderful colleagues in the presentations, like Tom's presentation, Rob's presentation. I love those presentations. I got so influenced, and they kind of boosted me up, and it became a little bit more emotional and a little bit more making people rather think more positively and making people actually think in order to have a better future. That's why I told you I inserted a little bit of the best case scenario future rather than a gloomy future. And if they don't start thinking, we will have a gloomy future. But anyway, I didn't want to terrorize or panic anyone.
Yeah. So what is it? What is it that we did in the past that's influencing perhaps what we're doing now?
I have been seeing a lot of changes which are very positive in my opinion. Like in the past, things were more traditional in the language classroom. Teachers were very reluctant to use new material, to get out of the textbook, to experiment, to use activities like STEAM-based learning or brain-based learning, or doing, getting their hands dirty in the classroom. They only thought that the language classroom was like, okay, we're going to teach rules and grammar and vocabulary, and that's about it. And I'm not talking about the teachers who usually attend conventions like IATEFL, but I'm generally speaking, because I have this vast experience traveling all over the world, I have seen many teachers who sometimes are quite reluctant to get out of their way to try something new. Thankfully, this has started from the last years. Maybe it was COVID that pushed us a little bit. I mean, at least in my experience, the last 2 years I've been traveling around the world, I have started to see change. I've started to see more engagement in the classroom, more hands-on activities, and not just write this essay or do this grammar task or do this vocabulary task. Things are changing. People are doing different things now.
Well, this is great news. And what do you think has prompted the change? Do you think it was the pandemic somehow, or are materials that are coming out perhaps forcing us to, or not forcing us, encouraging us to be more hands-on and taking things off the page a bit more?
If I'm 100% honest, and this is just a hunch, what I'm about to tell you now, because I haven't really discussed it thoroughly with many colleagues, but I think the pandemic kind of instigated a small change. Some people saw, okay, that if I go to school to learn a specific language or a language school or whatever, and that specific language classroom offers the same kind of things I can do independently with a computer at home, then why should I bother? So the schools started thinking of different ways of attracting students back into the classrooms, because let's be honest, we did isolate a lot, and this isolation created an antisocial way of thinking to people in many ways and in many senses. So in order to bring society and socialization, if you want, back into the classroom, teachers, school owners, directors, headmasters, they had to think differently. They had to start thinking of how we can become a community again. And a community is not just grammar, vocabulary, the traditional, because this they can do on their own now. They don't need the teachers. The teachers need to bring the community back into the classroom. They need to make students bond with each other. So that's what I think, in my opinion, instigated, and provoked this change into modern classrooms, drama, activities, and everything. I mean, I see it more and more, and I'm so happy about it.
And it's fantastic, and it's all about communication. And have you also noticed, are the students the same, or have they changed due to the pandemic? What's your observation?
I'm going to be 100% honest with you. I'm not an expert. This comes completely from empirical knowledge, from what I observe. But I think we would be kind of lying if we said that the pandemic didn't affect students psychologically, mentally, sociological. Of course, it has changed. I mean, there are children who were born during these times who they don't know how to act, like hug or kiss each other or certain things, with other children. I'm sure it has affected us on many levels. And unfortunately, I see this because violence is rising all over the world. And even children's violence is rising all over the world, let alone adult violence. I think the pandemic did affect us. The lockdowns did affect us. At least this is my personal observation. And again, I'm not an expert, as I said, but in my opinion, it must have affected us. Otherwise, we're doing something wrong. The human species is doing something wrong. We're not thinking critically anymore. We need to use our brains more and stop, distraction on all terms and levels.
Yeah, absolutely. I've noticed that the learners are perhaps a little bit more subdued, and it's more difficult to engage than it used to be since the pandemic, at least from my perspective.
But they do want to talk. They do want to communicate.
Yeah,
So we need to give them a chance to. Yeah.
100%. So if you spoke about the past and the present, what do you see in the future?
A lot of AI.
Oh.
A lot of AI.
Yeah, it's everywhere.
A lot. I mean, the last 2 or 3 conventions I've been to, including IATEFL, I see so many sessions and so many seminars on AI and how AI is taking over our lives and taking over our jobs, and teachers are going to become obsolete or students are going to become dumb because AI is going to be doing all for them. If we think of AI as another tool and not as the god of technology, and if we use it in moderation, it's not going to kill us. It's not going to destroy us, and we're not going to live the Terminator lives. If we depend on it 100%, and we think that this is all, this is the future, only this is the future, and we don't keep back to the basics, we don't use a little bit in moderation of everything that we know, a little bit of AI, a little bit of blended learning, a little bit of this, a little bit of diversity in our class, differentiated instruction and so on, then yes, we will live the Terminator.
Well, let's hope not. That would be awful, wouldn't it? But yeah, so a bit of moderation and a bit of a mix, and that's what you predict for the future. And is Express doing anything with AI? Is there anything in the pipeline?
Of course we do.
Yeah.
We do have an adaptive AI learning system, which helps a lot the students and a lot the teachers.
If there's anyone watching who's not sure what adaptive learning is, could you tell us?
Yeah, of course. The system, the platform that we've got, basically measures the students, not through a test. It gets to know the student through an algorithm and then creates activities specifically designed for that specific student, according to the level of the student, giving the student feedback to what they need. So adaptive learning means it adapts to the needs of the learner, not of the classroom, not of the school, to each individual learner. And of course, this is based on AI technology, not open AI, closed AI, so it's a safe environment.
And closed AI meaning that not everybody can access it.
Not just that, it doesn't take the source, the information from an open internet, which is, you don't know what kind of information you're going to find in there.
Yeah.
It's based on university research.
Okay, so it's a much safer environment for
Much
the learners.
safer, yes.
Oh, okay. So this is things to look forward to. That's brilliant.
Yep.
And what are you going to do for the rest of the conference?
Attend sessions and more
Uh-huh.
sessions. Actually, if I'm honest, I've spent very little time at the stand because this is my chance, to go and see as many seminars as I can. This is a place where everybody meets every year. So I'm going to be here every year to see as many sessions as I possibly can.
Absolutely. But if anyone did want to find you, what stand are you guys at?
At stand 40. I'm going to be there for the rest of the days. Sometimes, at least during lunch, I'm going to be there. But yes, I'm definitely going to be running around, attending as many seminars as I can.
Oh, lovely. Well, Jenny, enjoy it. Have the best time ever. And thank you very much for talking to us this afternoon.
Thank you very much for the interview. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Diana Wang from IATEFL, China. It's the second time here in Brighton with IATEFL, and yesterday I loved the Penny Earth presentation very much. I learned a lot, and I wish to come back here or the next IATEFL conference next year. Thank you so much.
Hello, good morning. My name is Panayota Vampula. I'm here in Brighton, IATEFL 2024. The weather is fantastic outside and the conference is great. Yesterday I had a chance to attend the showcase, the TISIC showcase, and I learned some new things about, let's say, an alternative method of assessing writing through presentations. And I had a chance to meet like-minded people and enjoy the conference. Thank you. Bye.
I come from Cuba. I am one of the leaders in the Teachers Associations in Cuba. And I've been here in IATEFL, and this is not my first time, but I would say that coming to IATEFL is a way of sharing with people, learning from all their experiences, and then having the opportunity to meet new friends.
Yeah. Oh, hi. I'm from Uzbekistan, Tashkent. I'm a teacher at secondary school, and I'm at IATEFL for the first time, and I'm very excited. I'm super excited being here.
Hello, my name is Carlos. I am from Costa Rica, and I'm here with the University of Graz, and I'm really looking forward to Sarina's plenary on decolonization and identities.
Good morning, I'm Mike from China. My attendance at the conference this year is for just to absorb knowledge from those TESOL teachers from all over the world, trying to get knowledge in the area of education as much as possible. Thank you for holding this conference. Thank you.
Spoken to some really inspiring people today.
Yes, as have I.
Oh my gosh. But next up is maybe my role model and definitely somebody who inspires me. And having said that, and the fact that she can't keep a straight face, you can already tell that obviously we are going to interview our big boss. Oh, actually, as of today, as of 2:00, not anymore
Not
a big boss.
No.
Because Sean,
hello.
Hi.
Your microphone, my love. Yes.
What happened at 2:00?
I'm now a free person again. I have given up volunteering for IATEFL. No, I'm quite sad about it, really. My tenure as the digital chair is now over, although I can't just walk away because I've got to keep running the live stream for the next few days.
So for the next few days, we've got you here.
Yes.
But
And then that's it. It's all George's after that. So George's, you can't see what's happening over there because you can't see where my desk is. But George is now sat trying to work out how the live stream works.
Georgia has literally already taken over his chair, making adjustments to the desk and everything.
Yeah, I know, yeah, she's packed up her bags and everything.
We will, of course, miss you. For the people who don't know, what is a trustee? Like, what do they do? What have you done, actually? What do you do?
Well, I don't do anything anymore. I think some people do get confused about what the trustees of IATEFL are, but it's essentially the board of directors of the charity or of the company, the association. We're trustees because it's a charity. There are 8 of us. Oh, sorry, 8 of us. My language has to change. There are 8 trustees of IATEFL.
And they act as the board of directors, so they make the decisions for the company, for the charity. It is an incredibly interesting thing to do. When I took on the, you become a trustee via election, and you take on a term for 3 years, and then that can be extended to another 3 years. Hence the fact I've done 6, but then you have to stand down. But so my role as digital chair, as people will know, is doing the live streams and bringing online events and all those kind of things to IATEFL through our social media channels primarily. But a bigger part of being a trustee is actually, and the bit that I find most fascinating, you having been in ELT for over 30 years, you kind of learn all the ELT stuff, but then you become a trustee and you suddenly learn so much more because you're learning about how charities work. I've learned so much about charities, about good governance, about risk assessment and those kind of things, which it probably doesn't feel like it's part of every ELT teacher's job, but incredibly fascinating. I think there's so much that you learn that you can bring into education with it. I've been volunteering for IATEFL for 15 years or so. I mean, Nikki and I were on the Learning Technologies Special Interest Group Committee together a number of years ago. IATEFL is fundamentally built on volunteering. We have an incredible head office staff that do the day-to-day work, put this conference together and those kind of things. But almost every aspect of IATEFL is done by volunteers. Whether that be a special interest group, whether it be the trustees, the person that runs the associates, the committees here and there, everybody's a volunteer. And it's just an amazing thing to get involved in, really.
But this is super interesting because I think this is perhaps something that people don't know, the fact that the organisation is predominantly run by volunteers. If someone was thinking, oh, how could I get into this? What should they do?
Well, they should definitely go with that flow. I said in the live stream prior to conference, when we were talking about conference, I said when I first went to an IATEFL conference, it was, I think, every first time at IATEFL. I think you were talking about your friend earlier who said how big the conference is. Every first timer to IATEFL thinks, oh, I'm coming to this conference. It's almost on I remember it was almost on a pedestal for me. I'm going to come to this amazing event, and everybody talks about IATEFL, talks about this. Never mind speaking at it, Once I went to my first conference, and I went to a special interest group open forum, which in conference these are the times where there's like the meeting of the special interest group and they discuss what's going on. They're moving more and more online, but they take place at conference. And I remember going into one, just sat there going, you know what? I think I could get involved in that, and realizing, that there were so many like-minded people in the room. So this is halfway through my current teaching career. This is obviously, if I volunteer, this is an outlet for me, and I'm going to get some development through this. And I think I'm going to grow professionally through this. And I think people have to realize that IATEFL is full of very ordinary people in a positive ordinary people sense. It doesn't matter who you are, well, you might be the most published person, or you might be, somebody particularly famous, but here everyone is the same, and we're all the same. We're all key to taking the profession forward. And I think if you want to volunteer, you just put your hand up and you go do it, and you will be welcome to do it. Every special interest group needs a committee. Every special interest group runs events. Every special interest group needs somebody to do their budget, to do their social media, to do that. You've got a skill that you could probably bring to that committee or that special interest group, and you'll see IATEFL from a different way and be part of a very like-minded group of people, I think.
Absolutely. And it's not just you bringing a skill, but I think you learn a lot, don't you, whilst doing it?
Yeah.
So you develop skills that you might not think.
Well, you can imagine what it's like when we're on the committee. You're suddenly planning an event, and you're suddenly all the budgeting requirements you do, which you don't learn that on the average teacher training course.
No.
And then the requirements of this, that, and the other, I find fairly fascinating. And you think, well, how is that relevant to me if I go back to if you go back to the Czech Republic? But you do learn those skills, and they do cross over. I found as a trustee that what I found really interesting, because I because obviously we're part of, because we're a charity, and so obviously we're overseen by the Charity Commission, and I don't think people realize that, that we're at first fundamentally a charity, and that gives you a lot of rules on how you operate. But the thing about the Charity Commission as well is that it provides a lot of professional development. So I've spent AI is the topic. I think you can't sit down in the studio without saying AI. So I mean, for example, for the last 3 months, I've been going to Charity Commission workshops on AI, which are not being used in education because they've been used by charities, and it's so eye-opening how they're using it, and then I can bring that back into education and see how I do. So sometimes we can be a bit of a closed shop professionally and bringing stuff from other sides, and I think that's where volunteering really comes in as well.
Absolutely. So what advice would you have if anyone's sitting there thinking, I'm not sure that's for me though, but what would you say? I mean, you've already said go for it. Is there...
Well, I mean, first and foremost, any volunteer needs to be a member of IATEFL.
Right.
Okay. So obviously there are people, we have become a member, but a lot of people watching are members of it. They just can't travel to conference. Being a member of IATEFL and being at the conference aren't one and the same. So they can't necessarily come to the conference, hence the fact we try and give them the taste on the live stream. But generally, you have to be a member of IATEFL. And if you're a member of IATEFL, you're probably part of a special interest group, because the standard membership of IATEFL, you join a special interest group. So get involved in that and look at what they need. I mean, they tend to be calls for volunteers quite regularly for it. And they don't, I mean, while you're obviously, any volunteer post is a commitment of time, and some of it fits in with what you do. If you're the social media coordinator, you can do that at your desk while you're at a computer. I mean, I think I started in LTSIG. I think I started in events, then moved up to treasurer, and then eventually became coordinator. For it. So you kind of learn the skills as you go along and do it that way. But yeah, I mean, I just think it's just go for it. And it just really opens up a lot of opportunities for your own development and enjoyment. I mean, I think people at the conference know I'm sad to be stepping down because I enjoy the volunteering aspect, and I enjoy what you get out of it. Well, what I get out of it, and what hopefully the association gets out of having us as volunteers.
And we do get a lot out of you volunteering. Let's be honest, because I don't think people realize this, because there's a lot of voluntary options and jobs here. And like you said, some suit people better than others. But trustee and looking behind the scenes, what you do, it's like, it starts at 9, the plenary, and doors open at 8:30. I think you guys start at 7 or 7:30.
Oh, yes, 7:45 we start queue
management.
Do
Everything from the live stream to the Teams conferences to designing the fabulous T-shirts we're wearing this year.
That's all our president's fault, and she did a fabulous job with those T-shirts. I mean, we've been asking for them for a couple of years, jokingly, and this year Alex managed to come through with them. So yeah, it's handy having a president that knows people and that can publish print T-shirts.
True, but you do a lot.
I think the trustees do, but I think all the volunteers do in their own way. It's a step up in time. If you're going to be a trustee or you're going to join the board of directors, you are naturally going to give up more time because there's a lot more to do. And again, you're running a company.
Yeah.
Or you're helping John and Louise run the company, but we are making the decisions that will affect how they run the company.
Humble as always. What is the task that you'll miss the most out of all the things that you do, like behind the scenes and like not behind the scenes? What will you miss the most?
I would actually think I'll probably miss. I'm such a nerd. I'm gonna miss the looking over all the risk assessments and those kind of things. It's really bizarre, but it's so interesting. I really like the governance aspect. I really got into the governance aspects of things. I enjoy digital stuff, but that's what I do. Yeah, the camaraderie we have as a live stream team, whether we're here or when we're doing it from afar, but that's what we do. I work in digital education. That's my thing. And the thing that's just new to me is I like to be challenged. And, you've got to, and getting on with it. You've got to keep your brain going. I like the rules and regulations, and I like that. The bit I'm kind of struggling with the most is, as I said at the AGM, so it's like this afternoon, we're kind of doing the strategic review of IATEFL at the moment, which we instigated a year or so ago, and it will be an ongoing process for a while. It feels very weird to have led the strategic process to this point, and now it's like, oh yeah, right, bye, I'm off. So those kind of that's what I'll miss, because you suddenly, up till even an hour before the AGM, we were making decisions on those, and now I'm getting cut out of all the Google chats and all the groups because that's it. But yeah, no, I mean, I'll miss doing the live stream aspects of it, but but as I say, that's what we do as our day to day. So
he did not say us.
No,
he did not say us. Like, I thought that was the obvious one.
No, I can't wait to block you all in the WhatsApp group.
He's being cut out of everything, but he'll do it to us on Friday.
Friday.
So, Sean, what are you going to do with all your free time?
That's a good question. I well, I obviously, if I put my professional hat on, I've just accepted a new role in the International Health Organization, so I'm going to be concentrating on that for a little while. I volunteer in other ways. I live in Oxford, so I volunteer in other ways. So I'm looking forward to doing a little bit more. I'm a cricket coach, so I'm looking forward to being available more to coach my little under-9 team that I have in Oxford.
Under-9s.
Under-9s.
Oh, that's so cute.
3 of us run the under-9s. It's always this bind because the cricket season starts for the club this week.
Oh, right,
so
okay.
I missed first training. It's like, that's a commitment for you, isn't it? So yeah, I'm doing that. Yeah, I think it'll be more after the conference. It'll be like, oh yeah, it's just like I've got all this free time that I didn't have, but it'd be nice. I'll go, as people who know me know that my other hobby is board gaming, so I'm sure I'll fill it with lots of board games.
You'll find ways, won't you, to
yeah,
fill the time.
Time always fills itself, doesn't it?
And do you think we're going to see you again, Sean?
Well, I'll be at a conference, so I'll always be at a conference. But you let other people go, and things move on. IATEFL's been in existence for over 50 years, and it will keep going. And
so have you.
Yes, that's true. Thanks, Nikki. Trustees come and go, but they all bring the new thing. And I'm really looking forward to what Georgia will bring to the role and how she'll define the role. I think, the thing about the digital chair is it changes every time. I mean, you look at the people who've done it, people like Gavin Dudney. I took over from Caroline Moore. Technology moves on the way we move on. Everybody gets their own agenda. And I think it's an exciting role for that. So I'm looking forward to seeing what that's going to bring. We're on the verge. Obviously, we've got the new vice president coming in. So it's great that we get this renewal going on in IATEFL. I mean, this time next year, I'll be able to see a session.
Yeah. Do you remember sessions?
I remember
Sean?
sessions. Yeah, I've seen one this year. By virtue of having to introduce Vicky yesterday morning, I got to see the plenary. So that's better than last year, when the only session I saw last year was the closing plenary. So I'm looking forward to seeing some sessions. I think it'll be hanging out as a normal person at conference. I won't even be asked for an interview anymore. So yeah, George is saying, no, it's gone. Anyway,
Doubt you will. I know.
We've got 2 days left.
Well, we've got 2 days left, exactly.
We got Joe and other people to come.
We promise you that.
Right.
We'll do everything. We'll get him back. If he's here as a regular, normal person, we'll just find him. We'll record him. We'll get him back on the show. We promise.
So I should point out, they insisted I did this interview. They've been harassing me.
You didn't have to force him that hard.
So let's go back to our normal show. Like, this is Georgia. This is Georgia's big.
Yes, boss. What are we doing now?
Can the video come on properly? Because I'm sat over here. She's got 3 screens and a whatever. Let's find out where we are. Georgia.
Hi everyone, I'm Silvia Karastafi. I'm Head of Teacher Support for LanguageCert, and we're delighted to be joining a global community of dedicated teachers at IATEFL in Brighton. We have been busy building a program that showcases what we do best at LanguageCert and how we support teachers for our qualifications. Come to our talk on Wednesday, where you can find out all about LanguageCert Academic, our test for international higher education admissions. And we especially want to invite you to our signature event on assessment and learning for the digital age on Thursday. Here we have experts from assessment development, educational leadership, higher education and digital learning, and they will share with us their insights on assessment fit for the digital age. On Friday, please join my talk on multimodal assessment. You will find our team at booth 20 in the exhibition. Please pop by to talk to us about how you can join our global teaching community. See you in Brighton.
God, what happened? I've missed the studio. I was behind the scenes at a point. So, welcome back, everybody. I'm very happy to have with me another Hornby Scholarship winner, Lauren Ahisakie. Lauren, welcome to our studio.
Thank you very much.
And congratulations for the scholarship.
Thank you.
Is this your first time in IATEFL?
It's my second time.
Brilliant.
My first time was in Liverpool.
Fantastic.
And I was a Hornby scholar at that time. Currently, I'm doing a PhD course at Warwick.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
So, for the people watching us from home, can you tell us about your ELT journey and what has led you to IATEFL 2024?
Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing question. Okay, I'm a teacher of English. I'm from Rwanda. I've been teaching English for around 14 years. I always tell people that I accidentally became a teacher of English, but throughout the practice, I became a professional teacher.
Oh, wow.
Because when I started teaching, I was not trained to teach. I did linguistics and literature, and that was nothing to do with education. But then after my graduation, undergraduate graduation, I got a job of teaching because our country was looking for teachers. There was a shortage of teachers of languages in schools. So I went to teaching.
That's why it was accidental.
Yeah, that's why it was accidental. But when I started teaching, I found it quite interesting. Yeah, having talks with the students, talking, learning a lot to be able to come in class and teach. Then I enjoyed it, kept enjoying it. But then I realized that I was lacking the skills of teaching. So I started then looking for skills. Then one of the best opportunity I will never forget was joining the Association of Teachers of English in my country. The association is called IATEFL, and I became a member. Actually, I wanted to meet the other teachers to hear what they do in their classrooms so that I can tell them my challenges. Maybe they could help me. Then, as we kept interacting, I found that the network was even huge because there were opportunities of not only meeting teachers in the same neighborhood, but meeting teachers from the country, meeting teachers from other countries during conferences. And this kept growing to the level that I attended a conference That was a regional conference in Tanzania. Again, I met a lot of people. I kept loving this. uh, in the middle, as this was my quest to grow professionally, I also was applying for scholarships to also grow academically. So I got a scholarship. I won the Hornby scholarship. Thank
Congratulations.
you. That was in 2018. Then I was admitted at the University of Warwick, and that was also another achievement, another great opportunity to meet other people. I was happy to go, even because I was thinking maybe if I meet other people from all over the world, oh, this is going to be an opportunity. That happened because Hornby gives not only the opportunity to grow academically, but it also opens up, because for instance, one of the best opportunities is helping students to join IATEFL conference and present.
Brilliant.
My presentation in an international conference was at IATEFL because of Hornby, and I enjoyed it.
And I can see that in you, because when we were talking before the interview, we're talking about how you enjoyed it, and it's fantastic. You also had a session yesterday.
Yes.
Lovely. And it's related to bottom up CPD.
Exactly.
Can you tell us a few things more about it?
Yeah. Still, this is related to Hornby. Another aspect of Hornby that people love about it, and they should love it, is Hornby doesn't forget scholars they supported in studying. When you graduate, after graduation, there are grants that are reserved for Hornby scholars, alumni, or associations of teachers they join. So when I went back home after my graduation, I went back to the association because now I had many more things to share. Then I also, because the association had opportunities to apply for grants of Hornby, so they knew it. So I was happy that they had an idea. It was easy for me to convince them to keep applying. So we applied for another grant. I worked with a group of teachers and we won another grant for the association. And this was it was a project was a bottom up, like it was entitled. Why? Because in the association we have created this idea of communities of practice. Why? Again, this has a story, because the association, actually associations are known to be centered in the cities, in the capital cities, because it's easy. But our association has realized this is a problem. The teachers we wanted to help are in remote areas. At least in the cities, people can manage. What about our colleagues in remote areas? So we started creating communities of practice where teachers in the same neighborhood created small groups of interactions, and we called them communities of practice. They meet regularly and they think about challenges they meet, they share experiences, they find solutions together. And then when we were thinking of this application to submit it to Hornby, we thought about the communities. Then uh, some years back, the leadership of the association used it to apply for this. Crafted the design, everything was done by leaders. This time we said, oh, leaders, please get aside. It's going to be done by teachers. So we invited the teachers, they brought ideas, they crafted the proposal. I was among the team to help the teachers, but the ideas were from the teachers.
Brilliant.
So they crafted a proposal, we submitted and got the grant. And when the grant came, the entire project was implemented by teachers from scratch. So all of this done by teachers and supported the teachers, teachers supporting other teachers, because we had presentations, topics, the choice of topics were from teachers. according to needs they have in their contexts. And presenters were among the teachers because they would say, okay, oh yeah, this teacher, we know he's the best in this area. Maybe he can help us in this. Then became a presenter at this. So they chose presenters as well. So all the support in from the teachers, by teachers, for teachers.
This is
So,
brilliant
yeah.
because I think that the best teacher development is the teacher next door, because these are the people that you get to speak to every day about your challenges. You get inspired, you give suggestions, and it's brilliant. This is fantastic.
Exactly.
Yes.
So that's why we called it bottom up, because now it's from the teachers and helping other teachers, peer support, peer feedback, all the things done by teachers. So we feel that, and we have seen this. Teachers enjoyed it. It was quite totally different from the times back when we used to invite experts from British Council, from US Embassy, from university lecturers to come and speak to teachers. This time, teachers were speaking to their peers, and they enjoyed it.
Oh, fantastic. Now, Lauren, I want to ask you, this is your second time in IATEFL, and what sessions have you seen so far? What have you learned so far?
Of course, some of the sessions are related to my interests. My interests are associations, teacher, professional development. These are my main, yes, of course. And more than that, I'm also interested. I got interested in artificial intelligence.
Oh, yes.
As a trend.
Absolutely.
Something that is trending. Well, I will say that we are not going to run away from it, because either we join it or we are lost.
Exactly.
So,
Lauren, thank you so
Yeah.
very much for joining us today.
All right.
I hope you enjoy the rest of the session.
Of course, I will. I'm sure.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you.
If we're talking education and sustainability and making your school more sustainable, minding your waste is a good place to start, and recycling is the obvious way to do that. But how? First of all, check with your municipality how they collect and process their waste. Even if your region doesn't separate its waste, there's bound to be initiatives that will collect PET bottles, paper, cans, or batteries for money, which is a good way to still separate the items and make sure they're recycled. Now, getting people to want to recycle is going to be the challenge. But if you ask me, there's two ways to do this. First of all, turn it into a game. People like games and they tend to motivate. Now, think of basketball hoops above your classroom bin. And you think this might be too obvious, but the Dutch government has actually done this for a while, and they found it works. And even though people don't necessarily throw better, at least in this country, we can't throw. But still, at least all the waste is in one area and is then easier to clean. Another way to do is to add a voting system. Whichever bin has the most garbage at the end of recess or at the end of the day is the winner. Now, this doesn't sound very cool, but trust me, if you give each bin the logo of a local football club, for example, or a number that links to a question that you can ask the students each day, trust me, they'll think it's cool and it will work. The second way to motivate people is facts. Did you know that on average we waste 120 kilograms of food per year? Or that if Shakespeare had had a plastic toothbrush, it would still be around and usable today. Now, recycling reduces the chance of plastics ending up in the environment, and we all want that. Researchers estimate that depending on where you live and what you eat, we eat up to 5 grams of plastic per day. So best way to fight that, scare people with the facts and make sure we don't eat or breathe in any more plastics than we need to.
back. I'm joined in the studio by Jo Gakonga. You probably recognise Jo because she's always making videos online. Hello, Jo.
Hi, Nikki. Nice to see you.
It's lovely. It's lovely having you here. Thank you for talking to us today. Jo, how are you enjoying IATEFL?
I always love IATEFL. I mean, what's not to like, really?
Oh, no, I couldn't agree more. And you have come all the way from Sydney.
Australia, yes. Yeah, it's... I've only been in Australia for the last 2 years, so usually, I was more locally based. But yeah, it's just so nice to come back. You get to see so many people. It's always a big meet up with friends, and there's always interesting things, new things. So it's great.
Absolutely. Jo, for anyone watching who doesn't know you, could you tell us what you do?
Sure. So I started off as a teacher trainer, CELTA trainer, and about 12 years ago I started my own website, elt-training.com, and then that kind of grew over working then at Warwick University, doing a PhD for my sins, and then the last couple of years I've been just freelance working on my website. Still do a bit of CELTA training here and there to keep my hand in.
Yeah, absolutely. Why not? I saw that your PhD was in mentoring.
Yeah.
What did that mean? It was that you were looking at how mentors, what they
No, it was actually it was interesting. And in fact, Lauren, who you've just been talking to, was one of the mentors on the program that I developed. So this was at Warwick University, and we had 2 cohorts of people. We had on the MA TESOL, we had one group of people who were inexperienced teachers, people who didn't have teaching experience yet, and then another group of people who did. I think it's really common in MA TESOLs in the UK.
Yeah.
And one of the programs that the inexperienced teachers did was a peer teach reflection kind of program, a module where they were assessed on their reflection on their teaching, their reflection on their teaching, not external assessed or anything. And I was also running with Steve Mann a module called Teacher in Education and Development, which was for more experienced teachers, many of whom wanted to be teacher educators, mentors in the future. And so it seemed to me that we were missing a trick in not putting these 2 groups together and getting the TED people, the teacher education and development people, to mentor the inexperienced teachers on their peer teaching, and then they reflecting on their own feedback and their experience with the mentors. And so it was a kind of real reflective circle, I suppose. And I developed that program over 5 years, had over 70 mentors went through it. And the PhD is all about the development of that program, but also about the interactions of the mentors who were often novice mentors. They'd maybe never done any mentoring before, and how they interacted. We recorded all the interactions, they listened to them, they transcribed them, they analysed them. It was a fascinating project. And my PhD thesis is on my website. If anybody really wants to have a look, got a bit of bedtime reading, it'll really put you to sleep.
Well, I think it sounds interesting, Jo.
Thank you. You have to say that, probably.
I don't have to say that at all. I'm not paid to say that. No, but and so did it improve? Did it help them having somebody like a more able other to help with the reflection?
Yeah. So I think, well, I think, I say there were layers of it. So I think that it didn't, as with all of these things, some relationships between the mentors worked really well and they became very close. And one of the sort of the byproducts of the project was that those 2 groups of people who very often, I think, on MA TESOLs are quite separate, even though they have some of their modules together, they tend to kind of end up being quite separate. It did bridge that gap quite well in some respect between the 2 groups of MA TESOL students. So that was a nice byproduct. Obviously, some of the relationships didn't work quite so well. That's the nature of relationships, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I got great feedback from all of the people who were mentored, the novice teachers. Most of them seemed to feel that it was really helpful, at least neutral, really nothing that was negative. And the mentors themselves, I got great feedback from them. I think that idea of having a really practical experience where they did something, where they were able to really hone their skills and reflect on them. And then because the mentees taught twice, they were able to give feedback twice. So they were able to listen to their first feedback, transcribe it, think about it, reflect on it, decide what they wanted to do differently next time and try again. And that process and that development was, very interesting.
Yeah, no, I can imagine. Yeah. Oh, okay. This is food for thought.
Yeah.
Thank you there, Jo.
Yeah.
So since finishing your PhD, obviously a huge relief, probably weight off your mind. What have you been doing? Tell us about your journey since then.
Well, as I say, absolutely not an academic one. I think the PhD was a wonderful thing to do and really good for me because it also made me a better supervisor of MA students, to be honest. But I think I don't want to do any more academic writing ever again in my life. But so since then, the website kind of took over, and because COVID, obviously, I was more at home, working more from home, even though I was still working at Warwick. And then I was offered voluntary severance, so that kind of played into my plans also to want to go to Australia. My partner's Australian. And so then I went full time with the website and developed more courses for that, some asynchronous courses, but also a group program, which again, I think the experience of doing the PhD and developing that kind of group program, those kind of experiential, reflective group programs was helpful with developing my video course too. Yeah.
Okay, and you're giving a talk, aren't you? It's tomorrow.
Tomorrow
at
IATEFL.
4:20,
yes.
Without giving too much away, could you tell us something about the talk?
Sure. So it's called Making Money from Educational Video, 12 Lessons in 12 Years. And essentially it's talking about some of the things, because I didn't have any training for video making. I really just kind of played around with things until I kind of found something I liked. And it took me a decade to get, and more, I suppose 12 years, to get to where I am. And there are things that, you kind of learn along the way. And so that's what this is about, is just some of the things that you can, some things which may be quite obvious and some things which maybe aren't quite so obvious about making video. Because I feel really strongly, because I've had such a positive experience about it, I suppose, that a lot of teachers, I know a lot of very talented teachers and a lot of very talented trainers, and I see a lot of job adverts which are offering incredibly low salaries. And I can see how possible it is to make extra money. It doesn't have to be a full-time job. It wasn't mine for a long, long time. But how it's possible to supplement your income, to play around with it, to see what happens, to try a bit. And because it's not difficult to do it, within the confines of your bedroom, with the very minimal equipment and very minimal investment.
And we're living in a time, aren't we, where video is probably the most popular means of disseminating information, and people respond to that, I think, potentially a lot more than they did to reading.
I think
so. It's the way forward.
So. And I think that the proof is that here at IATEFL, I just walk around and people come up to you.
I feel like I'm interviewing a celebrity because I know who you are from all of the videos. Yeah, absolutely.
No, but it's really nice because people kind of often come to me, having done my asynchronous courses where they haven't ever spoken to me or even perhaps written to me or anything, and say, I really feel like I know you. I really feel, and that's what I wanted. I wanted to have an environment where it felt like someone was sitting down with you and just going through this stuff with you, as if like a one-to-one teacher would. But you could also, you didn't have to worry about, I didn't quite understand that, I feel embarrassed to go and ask them again. You could just play it again and again, and 3 weeks later, and again, if that was, if you still didn't understand, or if you'd forgotten, So that's it. It's a lovely experience to know that people appreciate it.
Well, absolutely.
Please note the exhibition will be closing in 10 minutes. That's the exhibition will be closing in 10 minutes. Don't forget your delegate badge in the morning.
There you go. Good advice. So if somebody wanted to have a look at your website, I mean, what they would find would be help with teacher training courses, and methodology in the classroom, as well as how to make videos.
Yep.
If anyone who can't attend the talk and was thinking, oh, I'd like to get into this, is there one piece of free advice you could give them?
There's lots and lots and lots of free advice on that. There's lots of
wouldn't
free
ruin your
material.
talk.
No, lots of free material for CELTA trainees on there. Lots of free material for teachers. You know, go and have a look. There's a lot, as well as the paid stuff. There's an awful lot of free stuff. But in terms of the talk I'm doing tomorrow, I'm going to record it, and it will be on my blog after Sunday. So
fantastic.
You don't even have to be there.
There we go. So you can actually see what Joe's doing on Sunday. Oh, that's brilliant.
Yeah.
And Joe, once you've had the chance to do the talk and see a few things, what are you looking forward to? Is there anything that you're focusing on this year in terms of themes or anything that you're looking forward to seeing?
No, but I'm having a really interesting conference, and having the talk at sort of towards the end of the conference, it's it's more about what you've seen than what you're going to see, I suppose, isn't it?
Oh yeah,
But,
because it's Thursday already.
By Thursday afternoon, I
And
think I'm going to be going.
It's crazy.
So, yeah.
Have you seen anything that's piqued your interest so far?
Yeah, actually, a couple of things. I really liked the plenary this morning.
Yeah,
I really liked the plenary this morning, and it came on the back of seeing. Actually, I see Verinda and Lou's just over there. I went to her talk yesterday, and it was incredibly powerful about inclusion.
Yeah.
And it really fed into the subject of the plenary this morning, and so I think those have both left me with. I say a lot of food for thought. They're not new thoughts, but I think it's useful. One of the things about a conference like this is that often you'll go to a talk and it's not that you've never heard these things before, especially when you've been around the block a few times as I have, but it's useful to rethink them.
Yeah.
And reprioritize them perhaps, and to just be reminded maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. And for anyone, well, if you didn't catch the plenary, if you haven't been here, you can watch the plenary online this afternoon or this evening. It will be posted on IATEFL's page at 8 p.m. And in terms of inclusion and maybe diversity with video, is this a challenge? Is there anything challenging within that, or is it quite an inclusive medium, I suppose?
I think that's probably not for me to say. In theory, at least, it's completely open, and YouTube is a huge medium with a very diverse cast.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting about the how much diversity there isn't within teacher education, particularly. So in the conference with the teachers, there's quite a wide variety of people and from a wide variety of contexts, and perhaps it's noticeable as you progress up the career ladder, particularly within CELTA training, for example, that it becomes a lot more monochrome.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, yeah, that is true.
And
so maybe this is something we need to think about.
Yeah, I think definitely something to. Yeah, I think that these sort of messages are very powerful and very real and very important. Actually, very important. So.
Yeah. Okay. So that's a nice reminder to try and watch the plenary this evening if you can do. Joe, thank you. It was really interesting to talk to you. I wish you all the best of luck with your course. And again, if anyone's interested, elttraining.com, and you can find lots and lots of videos.
Thank you very much. Enjoy.
Thank you, Joe.
Thanks.
Ready to revolutionize your ELT courses? Introducing ITN Education's captivating videos, the key to transforming English language learning. With our expertly crafted content, we'll accelerate language acquisition like never before. Whether in class or online, our custom-built videos support your learning objectives. Discover ITN education at IATEFL and elevate your ELT courses today. ITN Education, where learning comes to life.
And we're back, and I'm back here with Farinder. And you did a talk yesterday.
I did.
That was the talk of the town. That tied in with the plenary this morning. So talking on like trendy, inspirational, like amazing. Could you first introduce yourself to the people who might not know you?
Yep. My name is Verinda. Verinda Unlu, and I am a teacher, trainer, academic manager, school principal, anything that you can think of, I've done it. But I'm also the co-founder of the Inclusive Practices and SENSIG. I'm currently on the Global Issues SIG committee as well.
Global issues and inclusivity. I think that ties in
very much
with
so.
each other.
Yeah.
And like you said, that's also what the talk was about, right?
Yep. So my talk was titled Inclusion 2024. Where are we now?
And where are we?
Not
Dare I
very-
ask?
Not very far, unfortunately.
Oh.
And the reason why I wanted to do the talk was just to because we've been talking about inclusion for a very long time, and it has become a bit of a buzzword, really. When you go to talks these days, you will find the word inclusion, diversity, inclusivity, DEI on most slides at some point.
Yeah.
But what are we actually doing in reality? And are we doing what we think we are doing? Because inclusion, like if you want to achieve inclusion, it's actually quite difficult. It's not an easy thing, and you need to know how to do it, and in different contexts how it works as well.
So how do we do it?
Well, we need to focus on, as I said, our own contexts. First of all, we need to make people aware of what is achievable within our contexts as well, because it's not always going to be possible. Not everything is going to be possible in every context, right? No. So being realistic, our expectations are very important as well. But my talk yesterday focused really around the lack of diversity in our staff rooms, and questioning why that is.
So why is it? I mean, a good question for everybody listening and watching this is like, how diverse is your staff room? Think back of your work and like how diverse is your workplace? But why isn't it diverse enough?
Well, I think that's a good question. So as head of teacher training for one of the three largest teacher training centers, certainly in this country, but also worldwide, we train. Last year, for example, we trained around 400 teachers. The vast majority of those teachers were non-native, and quite a lot of those were from the global majority. And not all of them went abroad to teach. A lot of them actually say they want to work in the UK first or go to European countries. And what I'm finding is that actually when you look around schools, that's not the reality. So where are they? Where do they go? What is it? Because our hiring practices are excluding them? Are we just thinking that perhaps our students won't like a teacher that looks like that, perhaps? Do our students have this idea of what an English teacher should look like? And are we perpetuating that issue as well by not presenting them with teachers who look a little bit different?
But if we're talking about diversity, I think I love statistics and facts. So you said you have like a population of mostly non-native speakers who want to become an English teacher.
Yeah.
And most of them want to teach in the UK, which makes sense because ELT is very much a global language. Yeah. But then if we look at schools, I'm not from the UK myself, so how does the average UK school staff room look like?
Right. So we have become so much better at employing non-native teachers from the global minority. Now, the global minority is white. Okay, and when we talk about global majority, that's non-white.
Yeah.
Yeah. So because we've done a lot of work on raising awareness of non-native teachers from the global minority, that has got better over time. But we are still lacking in the area of the global majority teachers being employed in schools. In every school that I go to in London, around the country, you don't get anyone of a different colour in the staff room. They're usually white, and there'll be a mix of native and non-native teachers.
But that's quite shocking. I mean, I am that sort of non-native minority, like a Dutchie. I don't have ever had any trouble finding a job. But I do recognize, even in the Netherlands, that if you look at the staff rooms, they're predominantly white.
Yes. Why is that?
Why exactly? Why is that? Like how?
Well, that's it could be down to discrimination. If we're looking at that, it could be that school managers, school owners are afraid that if they introduce that type of diversity into the school, the students might not relate to it. But that's wrong, because our students need to know what the world is really about. I mean, we are a very diverse world, and we can learn so many things from each other. And then also, I mean, if we think about this morning's plenary, we were talking about, sort of teaching our young students from from an early age to be aware of differences.
Yeah.
So that when they're sort of adults, they don't have these biases so much.
Yeah.
And that is key, really, isn't it? So if we don't introduce diversity into their lives, then how are they ever going to know what it looks like?
True. Now, we had an interview earlier this afternoon in which Carol said, when it comes to the discussion, like we talk about equality more, but if we look at the statistics, it's actually getting worse. Do you feel the same applies here? It's like you said, it's a trending topic. You'll hear it everywhere. Everybody's talking about inclusion. But is it actually happening? Are we doing it?
No, we're not doing it, and this is something that we need to be working on more. We need to look at why we're not doing it, and I think it is because we are not sure how to do it. So I know every school has an inclusion policy. Yeah, but a policy that means nothing, because you can write down anything on a piece of paper and put it up on your wall. And a lot of schools will have DEI training as well, and often it's online.
Yeah.
And most employees do this training because they're rushed. So they have to do it. They know they have to do it. They have to tick that box as well to say that they've done the training.
Yeah.
But they're not really paying attention to what they're doing, really. And they don't really understand why they're having to do this.
Yeah.
It's just for them, it's just a bit of time that's taken up with another thing that they have to do, really. So what we need to be looking at is individual schools need to look at their context, understand what it is, and then have some meaningful conversations within the school to find out why it's not happening within their schools. So it's thinking about, sort of looking at the staff from top to bottom.
Yeah.
And looking at the hiring practices, looking at sort of where they are employing people of colour. And I would say most of the time you will see people of colour cleaning the classrooms and not teaching in the classrooms because they're okay for that, or at the door as security, or in the canteen serving you your food. So we're okay for that to happen, but we're not okay for a teacher to stand in front of students.
Yeah, and that's weird.
Yes. And it's a difficult question, and I think in my talk nobody could answer the question. Actually, all I had was silence throughout the whole talk. But for me to do the talk in this very sort of honest and open way is the only way to do it, because it's getting people to think about it.
Yeah.
And to reflect on what's happening and why it's happening. Because in ELT, it's a problem. When we look at higher education, and if we look at FE colleges, for example, it's not a problem. They're diverse. They have more diversity in their teaching staff than ELT.
So colleges don't have this, but ELT does.
Yes.
So it's specifically for ELT, which makes you wonder, because that exactly should be like the kind of topic and class that would be taught by a diverse teacher population.
Yeah.
We don't have this. And like you said, we do talk about it. And I've had a training myself, which is, to be honest, just more talking, but then institutionalized talking.
So the training is prepared often by a white person.
Yeah.
For a white
mine
audience.
Was.
Yeah.
Mine was.
Often, yes.
Yeah.
More often than not. And what we need to do is involve the voices of those who are missing in there.
Yeah, because the why question, I mean, you mentioned it a couple of times. We don't know. It's like, why, when we're hiring, don't we hire more inclusively? And that has to do with, like, how do people find the vacancies? How do you apply? How's the interview? It's like,
I think there's another side to this as well. You know, people don't apply if they don't see representation at the school as well. So they might think if you see a wall of photographs where it's all white teachers, you might not find it a welcoming place.
I can imagine. Yeah, if I'm going for a job interview to a school and I don't see anyone like me, I'm not going to feel at home enough to want to work there.
Exactly. So, you know, it can be quite a scary thing to do then as well, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
To be part of a team that doesn't represent
me.
You
would not feel safe.
Yes.
So how can we change that? Like, how can I make sure that, like you said, I am that sort of white minority, sort of non-native who still gets everything and has privilege? Like, how can I change
I think
this?
we need to look at our hiring practices. We need to talk to our HR departments. I think we need to look at our inclusive EDI policies that we are, you know, creating. Often they are copy-paste jobs, and really make an effort to, when we put out an advert, for example, if we're advertising jobs, to make it really clear that we're looking for people from diverse backgrounds. And we welcome applications from people of diverse backgrounds as well.
So that's what I'll do. Monday, when I'm back at work, I'll talk to our HR department. I'll talk to my boss and talk about, like, how we're going to hire more people.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And welcome back to the studio. Last but not least, I have got a treat for you. So I have got with us our IATEFL ambassador, George Pickering. George, thank you for joining us.
My great pleasure.
So I am saying a treat because George is the person that I go to when it comes to leadership and management. And thank you very much for all your ideas, George.
Always happy to help if I can.
So you presented today a hot topic,
Mhm.
especially when it comes to leadership and management, and you included AI in the mix.
Exactly. Yes.
So for the people watching us from home, can you let us know what happened today? What was the topic about?
What was the topic about? That's a good question. Well, obviously, it's one of the big themes of the conference, and we got off to a great start with Vicky's talk about AI, generative AI. What I was doing was looking at particular ways in which managers can improve themselves, save themselves time through using generative AI. I basically talked about the fact that managers have three sort of areas where they might develop themselves and their staff better. Firstly, it's to manage themselves. Secondly, it's to manage their own tasks. And thirdly, it's to help others manage their tasks. Now, a lot of the conference is about the third. For example, in the case of teachers, I was focusing on the first two.
Brilliant. And how does a manager start, especially when it comes to the first element, which is you yourself?
Well, I believe in sound foundations. That could almost be the name of a book, couldn't it? But you need sound foundations. So you need to have core competencies as a manager. And the key ones, I think, for me, are things like time management, stress management, how to coach people, as well as other things like managing change, and also statistical literacy and digital literacy.
I see. And what opportunities does AI present when it comes to these elements for managers?
Well, a lot. So let me just try and think the best way to frame this. For example, there are lots of ways in which generative AI can help managers to improve their productivity, such as the way that they can conduct, report, and then follow up meetings, how they manage their emails. A lot of managers now are using AI to draft emails, etc., etc. They're also using it, for example, to draw up policies and things like that. So it's an endless list, really, of helping managers to reduce their admin load in order to free them up to either use that time to coach, develop, and support their staff, or, and I think this is important, or to take their own well-being more seriously, take breaks, relax, do mindfulness sessions, and a lot of other things.
I must admit and confess to the camera as well that I am one of the people who do draft emails using ChatGPT, for example.
Yeah.
Do you find that sometimes this can take you much longer because you need to reflect, not just copy and paste, but also to give orders to the robot and then reflect? What do you think about that?
It can be a danger, but I think there are ways around that. For example, I use a particular program precisely because I can speak to it.
Mhm.
I don't type very well, and I don't. Well, that's another good thing. That doesn't actually correct my typing. It seems to understand what I want to say.
Brilliant.
But actually, if I speak to it, that cuts down the time.
Brilliant.
And as I'm sure you know, it's all about specific prompts that give you the information that you need.
Yes, exactly. And how can people be informed about these programs? Because there is such a massive range and brilliant resource library online, for example, of things. You can Google, for example, AI tools to write emails, for example. You will
Mhm.
find different resources. How can people manage all this information and choose the right tool?
That's a good question. I did give a couple of examples of things in the area of emails and also meetings where we had the different aspects of both. And on the right-hand column, I gave them a list of what were potentially good apps that they could use. So I was trying to do my bit to help them. But you're right, it is somewhat bewildering. I mean, in order to prepare for the talk, I think I probably used about 6 different generative AI models in some detail.
Oh, brilliant. Because I was going to ask you, my follow-up question was, how much AI did you use for your talk?
That's a very good question. In fact, I ended up using a lot of my time with AI on coming up with creative images.
Mhm.
So, in other words, I had images of IATEFL in 2040, IATEFL in 2030, where the speakers were either robots or the speaker was a robot assisted, as well as quite a few other things as well. Yeah. I also tried to do a live demonstration, but unfortunately it didn't work because of the website. But it was how you can get AI to coach you yourself, which is once again by asking the right questions. Basically said, you are an executive coach. I want you to coach me about a talk I gave last week. And I want you to use a particular model, the after action review model. Please, can you number all of the questions? And there it was. Fantastic.
That's brilliant.
20 questions.
That's
Marvelous.
fantastic.
And then after that, I said, can you give me an action plan with these two elements focused on? For example, my timing and also involving the audience in the session.
Fantastic. George, I need to come clean and confess something both to you and the people watching us. I did ask ChatGPT what questions to ask you. So I said, why not use AI then to generate the questions?
Yeah.
Which brought me to this question, which is a question that I thought, not ChatGPT.
Yes.
What about the ethical aspect? Not only for us now that we're having this interview, but also for managers who are using ChatGPT. Is
Yeah.
there any ethical element to it?
There has to be. Absolutely. And one of the things I focused on was the importance of making sure as an individual you are self-regulating in the right way, that you're working for an institution which has got a clear ethical and diverse policy on the use of AI by both students and also staff. So I think it's really important. I think one of the growing realizations of people are the negatives that we do have to think about, and we cannot discard them.
Exactly. Now, a lot of teachers, for example, have found ways to detect whether the work of their student is AI generated. Do you think that there will ever be a way when managers, senior management, for example, will say no to AI tools, and they will have a way to sort of monitor how much AI is used?
That's a very good question. I haven't honestly thought about that, but I think that there is a responsibility for senior and middle management to be thinking about the extent to which these tools are being used and for what purposes, because we know the downside is the amount of energy that they use up, which, as I understand it, is just going to increase as more and more people come on board. There's a nice quotation going back to 2003 by William Gibson, who said, the future is already here, but it's not evenly distributed. So whatever is a problem today, where we've got the early adopters using it, we just have to think about what's going to happen in the future when far more people are using it for far more uses.
Exactly. Now, going back to IATEFL, as our IATEFL ambassador, you have noticed there is a lot of topics on AI. Are there any sessions that you've attended on AI and you've thought that, oh, well, this is something that is definitely worth discussing again next year?
I think, and I hope that when we discuss it again next year, we have more information about the way it's used. So, for example, managers, we know about managers in general. We know about managers in America, but we don't know about managers in ELT around the world. So one of the things I invited people to do was to follow a QR code to fill in a survey for me about how managers are actually using it at the moment. So I think it's that sort of follow-up that is going to be very important. And I think a year is a long time in AI. Who knows where we're going to be in a year's time?
That's true. I remember last year when we were in IATEFL Harrogate, and with the IATEFL Live team, we were in our studio preparing questions, and it was the time when ChatGPT first arrived.
Yeah.
And we were using it to generate questions, to get ideas. And we were thinking, if that is this year, what's going to happen next year?
Yes.
And now that we are in IATEFL Brighton and we see all of these talks and we see different tools that generate or solve problems that we used to have, it is incredible. And that's why it makes us think that, yes, what's going to happen next year then? What kind of discussions are we going to have next year?
Exactly. What kind of discussions are we going to have? Discuss. Answer on a postcard. Send me an email. Talk to chat, GPT. I've been trying all conferences to talk about generative AI rather than say chat GPT, but I've just said it. So apologies, everybody. I prefer the generic term myself.
Exactly. George, last few questions, please. So what other topics are you interested in this year's conference?
I've come here with the mindset that I've got two learning areas at the moment. One is generative AI. The other is well-being. And I think I've got a third one actually called purpose-driven organizations, which is something I spoke about last week in Lisbon. So I've been heavily focused on those things at this conference.
Brilliant. And have you got any advice for people watching us from home about getting involved with IATEFL?
Yeah, do it. It's good for you, and it's good for everybody else. There's an old expression that I think John F. Kennedy didn't say. He almost said, ask not what IATEFL can do for you, ask what you can do for IATEFL. And that would be what I would say to people. The more you contribute, the more you get out of it. So if you move also from being someone who is not involved to someone who writes for newsletter, for example, someone helps to organize and then becomes more active, even more active in the organization, you will benefit from it. And for many people, including aspiring leaders and management, it's a great way of getting a lot of great experience, surrounded by fantastic mentors.
Amazing. George, thank you very much for your time. And on Friday, I'm looking forward to seeing you again to ask you what you have learned from this year's conference.
Fantastic.
Lovely. Thank you very much. Thank you.